More exclusive Naruto Lemon videos coming out on my Boosty. You can support me by subscribing. Link in description. He was awarded many titles, but she became the only one who saw him as a simple man, with his weaknesses and desires. And she gave him the most precious gift in the world. She gave him her friendship. And he will do anything to make the friendship grow into something more. Chapters 3 to 4. Enjoy watching. Chapter 3 Cherry Blossom. Jumping through trees and running at high speed did not prevent thoughts from flowing smoothly. Today Ototo and Naruto will be assigned to teams. Itachi still remembered the examiner's reaction on graduation day. Then he deliberately left the mission early to watch how his students were being tested. Sasuke passed perfectly. His clones were difficult to distinguish from the real ones without the help of the Sharingan. But Naruto was blushing, puffing, sweating, trying to curb the huge amount of chakra inside. Then she straightened up, blew away the stubborn strands that were getting into her eyes, and angrily muttered, "Date Bayo!" And with a quiet poof, the students were pinned against the wall by about 50 shadow clones. Itachi even thought that they wouldn't fit. But no, the academy class survived. True, the clones even had to sit on the ceiling. Personally, Kagami believed that the examiners simply could not stand the sight of 50 noisy blondes shouting, "Date Bayo!" Be that as it may, Naruto received her headband. Mom was going to throw a party for this occasion. Father said to be sure to invite Naruto. In general, Itachi began to suspect that the girl possessed some kind of innate secret technique. People became incredibly attached to her quickly after just a little interaction. Even his incredulous father's face brightened when Naruto came to their house. Sasuke trained only with her, and no one else. Only she recognized him as equal. It was at her suggestion that they went on their first family picnic in recent years. And Naruto just caught a glimpse of how jealous she was of them. Only one thing upset Mikoto Uchiha: the girl did not like shopping. Her neat, clean clothes were bought by Fumiko. Since then, Naruto has only hemmed and darned it, refusing new clothes. And even Itachi's mother couldn't convince her. Itachi touched his breast pocket. It contained a very special ribbon. It could accumulate chakra and could serve as a tourniquet or a noose. Rich emerald color. Gift for Naruto. He bought a training katana for his brother. It's time for him to master the skill of a swordsman. With her characteristic sweet, non-offensive unceremoniousness, she became an integral part of the Uchiha clan. One day, after running after Sasuke for training, she poked her curious nose into the first aid kit of clanmate Itachi, who had just returned from a mission. I took out a stimulating pill and tried it. My parents, Itachi himself, Sasuke, and the owner of the first aid kit watched with interest what would happen next. The girl tasted the medicine, grimaced, and looked at the medicine cabinet as if it had personally caused her an unimaginable offense. Even my father had a hard time holding back his laughter. While Naruto was carefully spitting, the head of the clan asked with a smile what she didn't like. Uzumaki explained. Her grandmother told her that earlier, before the Akimichi clan monopolized this area, other stimulants were made by the ironing. They were more harmless to the body than the current ones. And much tastier. But they were considered unprofitable, because they had the same effect, but it took twice as much time and effort to make them. And then, with a sly look, she offered to make a batch of new stimulants. For testing, so to speak. Fortunately, Fumiko's grandmother showed her how to make them. At that moment, her face resembled a fox's muzzle. It seemed that her pointy ears stood up on the top of her head, awaiting Fugaku's decision. He was quick to agree. After all, this opened up such prospects. In some ways, the Uchiha clan ceased to be dependent on Akimichi. After all, it is much better to work with a supplier tied to your own clan than with outsiders. Moreover, they managed to find out the character of Uzumaki. This one will not betray, but even in this case she will try to understand and forgive. 2 weeks later, Naruto secretly, with Sasuke, handed over a scroll with 2 small boxes. Which immediately caused a new stir, because medicines were classified as food, which means they had to be sealed differently than weapons. Itachi grinned, remembering how stunned Naruto looked when, a month later, Fugaku showed up at the site where they were training and began a lengthy conversation, the essence of which boiled down to a new order not only for medicine, but also for scrolls. While Naruto batted her eyes, Sasuke supported his father's words, and Itachi kept a stony expression on his face. By chance, of course, Kagami Uchiha, who happened to be there, began to bargain with all his might. Only later, when Naruto eagerly set to work, even ran into reprimand from Iruka in order to free herself a week from the academy. Itachi realized she couldn't believe that someone needed her. And even though she gave out stimulants in small portions, the Uchihas no longer had headaches on missions, even the strain on their eyes was less. Even though it was impossible to stuff more than 2 or 3 portions into her scrolls and they were given out at a time, it was still homemade food, and not some capsules and tablets that shinobi were forced to eat outside the home. Along with the ribbon in his pocket was a small book on Fuinjutsu. Naruto began to study hard. She wanted to become like her grandmother, the master of seals. But so far I couldn't keep up with the rhythm I set for myself. She slept for 2 or 3 hours, fulfilling orders, training with Itachi, studying with Kagami, so she simply fell asleep at the academy. When Ototo told Itachi about this, he went to his father and asked to reduce the pace and number of orders, at least for the time while the girl was studying at the academy. Fugaku was unhappy, but agreed. He also didn't want Naruto to make a mistake somewhere that could cost her life and health. And Uzumaki herself, having learned about Itachi's initiative, promised to take revenge. For the first time, she showed the frenzied temperament of the bloody habanero. Kagami stated with a grin that Kushina inherited it from her mother. Hearing such a promise, those around them tried to hide from the angry Fuinjutsu master. Itachi did not listen and regretted it. He didn't like walking around with braided pigtails with red bows for 2 weeks in a row. Firstly, they were treated with some kind of compound that prevented the hairstyle from losing its shape. Secondly, he still didn't understand how Naruto pulled it off. But the girl was clearly proud of her handiwork, and despite the tougher training, she remained silent, like a partisan. Only when Itachi repented and promised not to do that again. Although he himself no longer remembered why Uzumaki was angry, she changed her anger to mercy and gave an antidote. What Shursui, who had fun at the expense of his brother all this time, and his mother, who dreamed of a daughter, regretted. "You're smiling," Shursui noticed, appearing next to him. They were generally lucky with this mission. Accompanying the diplomat to Suna gave them time to browse the shops and stock up on gifts. They ran back light, hiding everything in the seal. "Who is she?" A friend immediately became curious. "Who are you talking about?" Itachi didn't understand. "Who is the girl who managed to make my always gloomy brother smile?" "HM?" He arched his eyebrow questioningly. The Uchihas did not need words to understand their relatives. Shursui rolled his eyes and moved closer. Now they were running level with each other. "From the moment you graduated from the academy, it was as if all emotions were frozen in you. You stopped laughing and enjoying life. Stopped being myself. But in the last few months, you've probably spent all the smiles you've accumulated over the previous years. That's why I ask, who is she?" "Naruto, Sasuke's classmate." Itachi remembered the cheerful blonde. "I can't do it with her, otherwise. I want to smile and answer her. Rejoice, laugh and be sad with her. Before I couldn't leave her alone, now I can't let her go. Without her, it's boring." "Uzumaki?" Shursui said thoughtfully. "Not a bad choice." "What are you talking about?" Itachi frowned in response. He didn't like his friend's assumptions like that. "I think you yourself know, Fugaku-san will gladly accept Naruto into his family. My father's student, future Fuinjutsu master and medic. Don't forget about the flexible genome of her clan. She's still a child." Itachi snapped coldly. "It's not for me to tell you that all shinobi grow up early. Yes, Naruto may not understand this now, but in a couple of years, when her talent and appearance take shape, she will have no end to her clan suitors. Even if she is not a beauty, she cannot be called ugly either. A cute, cheerful, positive girl with good genes and abilities. And then the Uchiha will have to compete for her attention. Itachi turned away. He was offended by his friend's reasoning about Naruto as a wordless thing. A piece of meat on the market, which is carefully examined from all sides. I wanted to hit him so hard to knock all thoughts about the girl out of my head. But deep down he knew that to some extent his friend was right. There were too few carriers of the improved genome. They could not afford to waste people. Because of this, closely related marriages were concluded, which, in turn, led to the gradual degeneration of the clan. Of all the clans, families and clans, only the Uzumaki could afford to choose a mate according to their heart. Their flexible genome was such an amazing thing that it did not spoil the gene pool at all, but, on the contrary, strengthened it and strengthened it. In union with the Kekii Genkai, the child definitely inherited the improved genes of one parent and the huge reserve of chakra of the other. That is why people ran after red-haired brides all over the continent. Of course, Naruto might not have inherited the characteristics of his ancestors. And her appearance made me think that the girl was only the namesake of the famous Fuina masters. After all, they all had red hair. But the fact that she became a Jinchuriki and survived the demon's sealing said otherwise. Only true Uzumaki, owners of special chakra, could endure the poisonous energy of the Kyuubi. Itachi understood that no one was paying attention to the girl yet. But Shursui is right. Once she reveals her talent for Fuinjutsu, the clans will remember the value of the red demons. And then Naruto will have to defend herself. I didn't tell you this so that you could grab the girl and run away. Shursui, as always, very accurately guessed his friend's thoughts. Naruto has a strong, stubborn personality that cannot be broken so easily. Then why did you start this conversation? So that you can see the advantages of this union. There will be no union, Itachi snapped. Naruto is a child, my Ototo's classmate, his sparring partner. When training her, I wanted to be sure of the person who would cover Sasuke's back on the mission. Shursui chuckled, regaining his carefree demeanor. Then here's some more information for you to think about. Father said that once a person close to our clan smiled just like you, looking at the heiress of the Uzumaki clan. Said the same thing as you? And who was it? Minato Namikaze. Tell me how it all ended with Kushina-san? The comrade winked slyly. Okay, let's run. We don't want to be late and ruin our kids' holiday, do we? Uzumaki, you must save me. With these words, Sasuke fell through the window into his classmate's apartment. And froze. Apparently Naruto had just woken up, because all she was wearing was a short white top and shorts. She stretched and pulled back the hair at the back of her head. Uchiha, do you have a conscience, Datebeo? She was indignant. I went to bed at 2 in the morning, working on your order. Today is the day of assignment to teams. That's it. Naruto rolled her eyes. Distribution only, the rest of the day is free. Will you have breakfast? She abruptly changed the subject. Yes. Then you can finish cooking. She waved her hand towards the kitchen. In the meantime, I'll wash myself. Through the splashing of the water, Naruto could hear Sasuke rattling dishes, grumbling in displeasure. Don't grumble like an old woman. She grinned, sitting down at the table. You can't even imagine how happy I am to try food that I didn't cook. Plus, yours turns out delicious. She sweetened the pill. The Uchiha thought a little. What do we have here? She rubbed her hands. Scrambled eggs with tomatoes, sandwiches with tomatoes and cheese, salad. What do you think? That's right, from tomatoes. And the juice, orange. There was no tomato. He shrugged. The guys started eating. So what do you need to be saved from? Asked Uzumaki. Sakura. Sasuke squeezed out, swallowing the sandwich almost entirely. No, out of frustration. To be honest, at first Naruto could not understand the general excitement around unmarried Uchihas. Until Mikoto-san said to look at them from the outside. Good looks, no warts, birthmarks, bugs or tattoos, stately figures, strength and aristocratic indifference, a killer mixture. Itachi's mother giggled, remembering the crowds that gathered around Fugaku during his time at the academy. At that time, she was glad that they had been engaged since childhood. But even after the official engagement ceremony, she had to try hard to ward off particularly persistent admirers. Sasuke was no exception. The girls squealed with delight as he passed them down the hallway. But from the very beginning, Sakura Haruno stood out from the crowd. She literally chased the Uchiha, hung on him, caught him on the streets, kept watch at the academy. There was no way for him to go anywhere. Naruto tried not to interfere. One time was enough, when she dragged a friend to the roof of the academy to have a snack there in silence. After this, Sakura recognized her as the #1 threat and began to consider her Sasuke's official girlfriend. And she intended to fight him off. The modest Hinata Hyuga spoke about all this, barely audibly, blushing uncontrollably during the narration. Naruto laughed at Sasuke, amazed at such a ridiculous assumption. But she has since stopped interfering. At least obviously. What did she do this time? She asked with keen interest. Sasuke grimaced as if he had swallowed a spoonful of wasabi instead of a tomato. She was on the street, in front of everyone, telling her parents that, "This is the boy I like." He mimicked Sakura's squeaky voice. "I don't know where to hide from her anymore. I hope she and I won't be on the same team. Or the teacher will help you hide." Naruto shrugged. "That's if a normal one comes along. Do you already know candidates for squad captains?" Sasuke narrowed his eyes suspiciously. "Where?" Grandfather Ka said that only an active jonin of general direction, so to speak, can become a teacher. He should not have a team or other important responsibilities. For example, the same Father Ino does not fit in 2 parameters. He is a mentalist, his focus is too narrow, and moreover, he is the head of the clan. That is, they are unlikely to install Tokubetsu Jonin. Sasuke nodded to his thoughts. It's also a narrow specialty, and this significantly narrows the circle of applicants. One of them will be my guy. The guys heard him talking about how he would soon have students. He is the strongest in taijutsu. Most likely he will be given a hand-to-hand team. There is also Yuhi Kurenai. My brother said that she was almost equal to our clan in genjutsu, but she doesn't have dojutsu. She may be given a reconnaissance team. There's another one. I wouldn't want to be on his team," the girl said gloomily. "Kakashi Hatake, a former student of my father." She sighed shakily. Heavy thoughts had plagued her ever since she learned of Hatake's possible candidacy. "I heard that he spends almost all his time at the memorial. And who else can he blame for the death of his teacher if not a demon? I really didn't want to work with a person who would hate her just like everyone else. Let's leave the candidates for teachers," Sasuke suggested. "Let's think about the command lists better. How do you think they can be united?" "Well, Ino Shikacho, there's nothing to say here, Datebeo." For some time, the guys enthusiastically rearranged their classmates, arguing about the possible composition of the teams, until they saw that it was time to go to the academy. They jumped out the window and ran across the rooftops. "You must protect me from Sakura Dobe," Sasuke stated adamantly. "And in what way, topic?" Uzumaki narrowed her eyes, jumping from roof to roof. "Right. Busy. On your forehead. I think it will do as a last resort," the friend said sourly. "Wow, I didn't know that everything was already so neglected." "Okay, I'll help as much as I can," Naruto giggled. There was an unusual excitement in the class. Of course, today they will be distributed among teams. They will give you an almost personal teacher who knows many techniques. Sasuke habitually took a place near the window. Naruto sat next to him, thereby blocking him from the fans. None of my classmates were surprised by the friendship between the best student and the main loser. They got used to it, and came to terms with it. The girl took out a small book from her bag. From the very first pages, my grandmother called it her camping diary. Despite its unsightly appearance, there was a real treasure hidden inside. All the seals that Uzumaki Sr. studied or invented throughout her life, she most carefully wrote down in it, with explanations. She started with the basics, telling why their clan had the best seals. She talked about the characteristics of blood, chakra, and genetics. She described in detail each training session, each exercise, compared seals by type, and explained why one or another option was better. She also wrote warnings about the dangers that may arise when using them. This was a textbook on Fuinjutsu, created with all the love for a person dear to the author. Naruto thought she saw a red-haired woman bending over a desk or warming up with a huge tenzin. Even though the figure had no face, the girl still felt her grandmother's care. Thanks to her, Naruto's first scrolls were created. The girl remembered how diligently she memorized every point of the instructions, how she chose chakra-conducting paper and special ink, spending almost all her savings on them. And then for a long time I did not dare to apply the first hieroglyph. The volume of what was sealed depended on the seal, chakra, and the size of the scroll. Hieroglyphs were applied along the edge of the paper with special ink, which disappeared when dried. But they had to be written the first time. It would not have been possible to correct them. Even an unfinished seal would conflict with the new one. She succeeded, but for a long time Naruto did not risk leaving this page of the textbook. She trained, checked, and double-checked until she brought the actions to automatism, when instructions were no longer required. And now she decided to use one of her grandmother's first inventions: protecting your home from eavesdropping, spying, and uninvited guests. The master was always under surveillance, which irritated her greatly. Naruto also felt a close, attentive gaze on her. Maybe it was due to acquired paranoia, or maybe to sensory abilities. But it was still necessary to secure the apartment. The seal seemed easy to do, but instead of ink, it used one's own, fresh blood. It was necessary to mark with stamps all the extreme points of the apartment, including the toilet. The supporting ones were the windows and the door. They had to be completely surrounded with writing. Throughout the entire work, the flow of chakra had to be continuous, thereby filling the hieroglyphs with power. To be honest, this was one of Grandma's simplest ideas. For Naruto, it was supposed to be a starting point. If she succeeds, then she will be able to continue to try herself as a Fuinjutsu master, but if not, she will have to limit herself to Iryujutsu. But I wouldn't want to. Naruto was still impressed by Grandpa Ka's story about the Uzumaki's true abilities as medics. On the battlefield, they could seal the wound or the person himself in a scroll, so the patient would survive until the hospital. Today's doctors have not even tried to repeat this trick. They managed to seal the wounded man only in parts. She also wanted to become an Uzumaki ironing. External noise distracted her from reading. The door slid aside with a roar, and two girls appeared on the threshold of the classroom. They tried to go inside at the same time and, of course, got stuck. Sasuke immediately put on an independent air. Naruto buried her face in a book, suppressing a grin. Sakura is in the company of her former friend Ino, the heiress of the Mentalist clan. Previously, they were inseparable, but at the same time they fell in love with Sasuke, and on this basis they quarreled. And now they shouted loudly at each other, not even paying attention to the fact that the object of their adoration could hear them. "Move aside, Ino pork. I came first. So I'll sit with Sasuke. You'll get by, big-headed. Only I am worthy to sit with him." Yes, you. Actually, Uzumaki is already sitting with him. The sleepy, drawn-out voice of the main sloth of Konoha, Shikamaru Nara, intervened. The girls looked at each other, simultaneously squeezed through the doorway and hurried to their idol. Sasuke-kun! Sasuke-kun! Out of her peripheral vision, Naruto noticed how her friend shuddered with a small tremor. "Tell me, I should sit with you, and not the big-headed one. Better me than this pig." Sakura looked at Naruto with a hard look. "Uzumaki, you took my place. I have to sit with Sasuke-kun. I think you better leave." Ino supported her sworn friend. "Just dare!" Sasuke hissed barely audibly. "I will take brutal revenge during training. Terrible Uchiha." Naruto made frightened eyes. "The main avenger of Konoha." Then she turned to her classmates. "Sorry, Sakura." She smiled serenely. "I didn't know that this was your place. It wasn't marked in any way." But if you want, you can sit next to me. She patted the chair. It will be great to sit at the same table with Sasuke-kun, won't it? Sakura opened her mouth when Iruka walked into the classroom. The girl had to purse her lips and take the offered place, glaring at the Uzumaki with an angry gaze. Iruka-sensei stood in the center with a sheet. We have divided you into teams of 3. At the same time, your characteristics, strengths, and weaknesses were taken into account. Thus, all teams will be equal in strength. Each group will have a Jonin mentor assigned to them. Now I will read out to you the composition of each team and the name of its mentor. Team number 7. Sasuke Uchiha, Naruto Uzumaki. The guys looked at each other joyfully. And Sakura Haruno. Mentor Hatake Kakashi. I saw it, I'll be with Sasuke. Sakura danced joyfully, shaking her fists. Not this. The friends whispered desperately and buried their foreheads on the desk. But why should I work together with Uzumaki? Meanwhile, Haruno was indignant. Because Sakura. Iruka-sensei began to explain calmly. The members of each team must balance each other. Sasuke is the best student, while Naruto is the worst. We hoped that he could tighten her up and instill discipline. You are needed as their stabilizing element. Naruto barely managed to stop Sasuke from opening his mouth. Surely he wanted to give up such an element. No need. She hissed. Otherwise they'll appoint some clan member, we won't end up with any trouble. The Uchiha thought and nodded, and the girl turned to the teacher. Iruka-sensei, but if Sakura objects to me, maybe we should put someone else on the team? For example? She suggested innocently. And I saw the gears spinning in my classmate's head. Despite her sometimes frivolous behavior, Haruno was not a fool. She instantly calculated her chances of winning over Sasuke-kun if there was another fan of his on the team. No, Iruka-sensei. She beamed with a grin. I have no objection to Naruto's candidacy. So let's move on. Team number 8. The genin were supposed to meet with their mentors after lunch. Sasuke wanted compensation for breakfast, so he and Naruto rushed to the girl's house, leaving Sakura sitting on a bench outside. When they returned, they found her in a more gentle mood. Sasuke-kun! She waved her hand and ran up. Isn't it great that we're on the same team? She blushed. Naruto sat down on the desk, again burying her face in the master's diary. You're being overcautious. Sasuke, who landed next to him, shook his head. Grandfather is to blame, Datebeo. Naruto muttered, not looking up from the order of applying the seals. She still remembered the lesson that had developed her paranoia to enormous proportions. When she was just starting to study with Kagami, she dreamed of quickly becoming stronger, becoming Hokage, so that everyone would recognize her. And her grandfather gave her many scrolls with techniques, which she was able to perform the first time, relying on what was written, of course. And then he released it into the initial levels of the forest of death. That fear, almost doom, when you realize that everything you read has flown out of your head. She couldn't even remember the chakra concentration seal. My hands were shaking, tears were flowing from my eyes. How old was she then? 3? 4? Naruto didn't remember. All she remembered was the all-encompassing horror that gripped her. Her grandfather helped her and saved her from a huge bear. And he offered to arrange a halt, saying that he was very exhausted and tired. Naruto was a child and believed him. They lit a fire and went to bed. For which they paid. The girl woke up from the moans of the teacher. He was wounded. The bear slashed him along the side, reaching all the way to his ribs. Naruto jumped up, not knowing what to grab first. Having somehow closed the wound, she helped grandfather get to the hospital, but they refused to treat him, because he came with a demon. And Fumiko's grandmother was not on duty. Tears flowed like a river. Everything was double in her eyes when she was looking for at least a simple painkiller. I couldn't find it. She was afraid, terribly afraid of losing the person who had become dear to her, her second friend after her grandmother. The grandfather surprisingly quickly came to his senses and threw off his illusions. It turned out, thanks to one complex genjutsu, Everyone except Naruto saw him as an ordinary villager. That's why they didn't help, thinking that the demon was exaggerating. He explained to the girl her mistakes. You can't go out on missions unprepared. You can't fall asleep in an unfamiliar place without posting a guard or setting up a barrier. In some countries, even just lighting a fire is dangerous. After the fight, you must definitely check your comrades, because your own life may depend on their condition. After that incident, paranoia appeared, and the girl herself decided to become a medical ninja to help everyone, so that no one leaves wounded like she and Grandfather Ka. She began to check and double-check, repeat every technique, every cannon until it was completely automatic. Wake her up in the middle of the night, and she can perform all the seals she has learned. And if she became unbearable, natural impatience drove her forward, she simply went to the training ground, where she trained until exhaustion. And then again for repeating the material. Naruto put the book away as the rest of the teams had already left the classroom along with their teachers. And she squinted her eyes badly. Itachi Kakashi may be a genius who has mastered 1,000 techniques, he may be the famous copy, Sharingan Kakashi, he may have more reasons than the rest to hate her, but now he is disrespecting his students. How can you be so shamelessly late? Naruto smiled and began rummaging through the bag she was carrying. Sasuke watched her actions with interest. Sakura, blue or pink? She asked. Haruno didn't understand. What color do you choose, blue or pink? I can also suggest green. Pink, the girl said, still uncomprehending, tugging at a lock of pink hair and straightening the hem of her rich cherry dress. What was to be expected? Sasuke snorted, glancing sideways at his partner. Naruto no longer listened to them. She finally found what she was looking for. A bottle of bright pink liquid, several small ampoules, and a jar of powerful liquid glue appeared on the table. What are you planning? Haruno narrowed her eyes suspiciously. Punish our sensei for disrespect. Naruto chuckled, filling the ampoules. These ampoules, only 1 phalanx of the little finger in height, were the pride of the Uzumaki. They were usually filled with a strong, fast-acting poison and used in case of capture. As soon as the leaf shinobi found himself in a hopeless situation, he injected himself with the contents of this ampoule, and important information did not reach his enemies. Naruto saw them from Grandfather Ka and with difficulty begged them for her experiments. Although at that time I still didn't understand why they were needed. But they came in handy. Can I help you? Sasuke immediately perked up. Watch out for our dear sensei. The Uchiha nodded and opened the door slightly, looking out. Uzumaki smeared the bottom of the ampoules with glue and attached them to the board brush, carefully hiding them and dusting them with chalk. While the brush was lying on its side, the liquid was in the ampoules, but as soon as it turned over, Naruto attached the brush above the door. Primitive, but what else can you expect from genin? Then they went around the class and began to wait. What kind of liquid is this, Uzumaki? Asked Sasuke. Hair dye. Persistent, it cannot be removed with anything other than a special product. Pink, Naruto giggled, seeing how it gradually dawned on Sakura. In the presence of strangers, this meant full-blown laughter among the Uchihas. The girl saw the black eyes sparkle. In general, the Uchiha were a very emotional clan, like fire, which was their main element. But their upbringing forced them to hide their emotions from strangers, allowing them to show them only among those closest to them. The pride of the Uchiha clan and its superiority must be demonstrated to everyone who is not part of the circle of closest friends, is one of the points of clan etiquette. Naruto understood that Sasuke's cheerfulness and liveliness were due to the fact that she was nearby. Because, thanks to her grandfather and Itachi, she was included in the circle of trusted representatives of the clan head's family. Do you really think the Jonin will fall into your stupid trap, Uzumaki? Sakura snorted contemptuously. It would be better if you didn't do anything at all. We'll see. Naruto shrugged, attaching the brush above the door with the expectation that it would fall on the head of the first person to walk inside. All that was left to do was wait. 5 minutes later the door moved aside and a head stuck inside. Oh, sorry. The brush fell right on the shaggy top of my head, raising a cloud of chalk dust. Naruto burst out laughing and Sasuke chuckled. Sorry. Sakura pressed her hands to her chest. I wanted to stop her. Jonin Hitaki Kakashi took the brush off his head, looked at the guys carefully, and sighed heavily. My team are idiots, he stated gloomily. Okay, let's go get acquainted. They climbed onto one of the platforms, located on a hill. It had a stunning view of the village. Naruto got her first look at their team's mentor. Standard green vest with many pockets, fingerless gloves. Almost his entire face was hidden by a thick mask that matched his turtleneck, and his left eye was covered by a bandage with the sign of a leaf. The look on the right was sad, bored, and a little doomed. It was as if he had been torn away from some incredibly important matters and forced to do something unworthy of his attention. Boring. But most of all, Naruto liked the thick, lush head of ashen hair sticking out in different directions, which, as the girl knew from her own experience, would turn a bright pink shade in a day. The composition is sprayed quickly, but does not act immediately. Are you sure he won't wash off the paint? The Uchiha whispered as they climbed onto the platform. The mentor rushed forward, naming the place where he would be waiting for them. Naruto and Sasuke fell a little behind Sakura, who was rushing there. We developed the formula together with Grandma Fu, Naruto whispered in response. For me. I didn't want to attract attention to myself. The thick braid of a rich golden color swayed, the hair seemed to be filled with sunlight, and Sasuke was forced to admit that there was only one such bright blonde in Konoha. Even Ino can't compare to her. But due to the characteristics of my chakra, the paint faded quickly, or the hair grew back. Basically, they didn't let me change the color. And the grandmother came up with a special remedy, which can only be gotten rid of with the help of another remedy. And why didn't you repaint your hair? I changed my mind. The girl shrugged. It's stupid to adapt to people, hide from them, instead of being yourself. That's how I was taught. They sat down on the steps of a small staircase. The mentor turned to them, judging by the closed eyes, smiled. Well, let's get acquainted. Tell us what you like and what you don't like. What are your dreams? Sensei, maybe set an example. Sakura intervened. Oh, it's very simple. My name is Hitaki Kakashi. I have many favorite activities, but fewer disliked ones. My dreams are none of your business. And he smiled. Sakura turned to the team. As a result, they only learned the name. You start. Naruto pushed her. She nodded and looked at her mentor again. My name is Sakura Haruno. I love, one boy. She blushed, squinting her eyes at Sasuke. He looked into the distance with an independent look, clasping his hands under his chin. I don't like noisy, loud, stupid people. She glared furiously at Naruto. She pretended to be embarrassed and offended. I dream, to become a strong kunoichi, stronger than this Ino pig. She shouted at the end. Well, what about you? Hitaki looked at the remaining two. My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I like tomatoes. I don't like ramen, but sometimes I eat it. He grimaced. Naruto snorted with amusement, knowing why her friend had to come to Ichiraku. I dream of one day surpassing my brother in Genjutsu. And my name is Naruto Uzumaki, Datebao. She exclaimed. I like ramen, I don't like tomatoes, but sometimes I eat it. Sasuke chuckled now. I dream of watching Sasuke one day surpass his brother in Genjutsu. Judging by the mentor's look, these were not the answers he expected from them. Okay, he grimaced expressively. Tomorrow at 8 in the morning we will meet at the training ground. An important test awaits you. I advise you not to have breakfast before this. See you. With a puff of smoke he disappeared. Was it a clone? Sakura turned to her comrades. No. Sasuke was brief as always. Naruto just nodded. Okay, we'll go. The Uchiha grabbed his friend's hand. Till tomorrow. See you tomorrow, Sasuke-kun. Out of the corner of her ear Uzumaki heard Sakura's confused voice. Before parting, Sasuke reminded them of the celebration in honor of their distribution, which would take place in the evening. And he promised to go pick up his friend so that she wouldn't try to miss him. Moreover, Itachi and Shursui promised to return from the mission on time. Her apartment looked more and more like a workshop for two people. The main room was dominated by the Fuin master. Thin, unfolded strips of paper lay on the table and floor. It took time for the ink to dry and completely disappear. Brushes and paints settled in the corner like a strange plant. The completed scrolls were immediately placed on hanging shelves, and from there into the cabinet, with the finished pills. Naruto even had to make room for completed games, since she didn't have much stuff. But a novice doctor settled in the kitchen. It resembled a chemical laboratory. Flasks, retorts, beakers, stands, and special pipettes. They were once bought by Fumiko's grandmother, who knew about Naruto's dream of becoming a doctor. There were fragrant bunches of herbs hanging from the ceiling. On the shelves in the cabinet there were squeezes and ground pulps. Under the window, on a newspaper, beautiful purple inflorescences were drying in the sun. There was a modest corner in the refrigerator for food. The bag lay neatly on the nightstand near the door, and sandals stood next to it. The curtains were drawn, the door was firmly closed. I didn't want anyone to break in on her in the middle of work. Worried, Naruto once again carefully checked everything needed to complete the seal. A bowl for blood, an ointment against inflammation and infection, bandages, a thin brush, a diary open to the right page. Although it seemed to the girl that someone had burned the required design on the inside of her eyelids. The kunai easily and accurately cut the skin and cut the veins without affecting the veins and tendons. Naruto winced slightly and bit her lip as the blood from her wrists flowed into the bowl provided. She was no stranger to pain. As a child, she had not yet been able to quickly run away from her opponents, but still, it was unpleasant. However, with her regeneration, by the morning there would be no traces of the wounds. The Uzumaki wrapped her wrists in clean bandages, not daring to heal them with techniques just yet. She might still need blood, and cutting a second time, BRR, Datebeo. And she got to work. According to the instructions, first the script of hieroglyphs was applied to the windows and door. Because the seals on them were slightly different from the other options, it was necessary to enter in certain places the names of those who were allowed to pass through the barrier unhindered. Then, when they arrive, the hostess must let them in, calling them by their written names, launching protection. The barrier will remember their chakra down to the smallest detail and will let it through in the future. The letters lay down easily and neatly, the brush fluttered over the white wall. Naruto carefully dipped it into the bowl, shook off any excess drops, and wrote again. Here, here, and here. 3 names, 3 trusted people. Itachi Uchiha, Sasuke Uchiha, Kagami Uchiha. Sweat dripped onto the eyelashes, cheeks, and chakra flowed through a special brush like a wide, deep river into the writing. The main thing is not to overdo it. There should be enough energy for protection, but not too much so as not to blow up the apartment. Fuinjutsu is a subtle, economical art. The barrier itself will maintain itself for a whole year, operating in a closed system. Then recharge will be required. Naruto felt her reserves slowly draining, as if drying up. Her chakra simultaneously resembled both a cool river and the prickly, hot desert air, literally breathing fire. Probably Kyuubi's influence. Soon the window was decorated with a frame of intricate ligature, and Naruto moved to the kitchen, then to the door. She crawled along the walls and ceiling, copying the drawing, trying not to make a mistake in anything. The bandages were soaked through, so we had to take a break to change the bandages. Drops of blood could not be allowed to spoil any symbol. There would be no second attempt, because the protection system was based on calculations centered on windows and doors. The next seals lay slightly to the left of the corners of the room. In the toilet I had to sweat, sliding off the toilet tank. For some reason, even chakra did not help to stand on the slippery lid. Naruto almost broke through it, and fell inside, but managed to hold on, clinging to the pipe like a monkey. The shower went easier. Naruto simply sat on the partition of the stall. The seals in each room created not only a general, external, barrier, but also several, internal, ones that separated each room. That is why the names of trusted people had to be entered correctly and in the right places, otherwise it would be awkward if, for example, Itachi could enter the apartment, but not the toilet. Naruto imagined this picture and laughed, pushing away the slight dizziness and nausea. It was also lucky that the minor seals were performed only once, at the top, and were quite short. Still, Grandma wasn't suicidal enough to die from blood loss after performing a single technique. White flies danced before her eyes, but she still had to activate the seal. She made a circular seal in the center of the room, which required drawing more blood. As Naruto put together the necessary symbols, she was afraid. If she made a mistake in writing even one dash or squiggle, all her work was down the drain. And it won't be possible to repeat it. Even an unfinished print interferes with the work of another one applied on top. With a blow, she poured chakra into the seal. That is why it was necessary to draw with blood, so it was necessary to feed it with one's own chakra. Homogeneous, same type of energy at all points created a protection system tuned only to it. It turned out just as my grandmother described in her diary. From the corners of the windows, glowing reddish lines ran along the ceiling and walls. They converged, connected with each other, crawled further, closing themselves. Like a huge web. The hieroglyphs themselves melted into the surface on which they were applied, although such an effect was not intended. But here, probably, the whole point is in the poisonous chakra of the Kyuubi, which permeated the entire Uzumaki body. In some places in the apartment, including an old, broken alarm clock, something exploded with a dim glow. The protection destroyed all seals saturated with alien chakra. Naruto smiled bitterly. After all, they were following the Jinchuriki. And then there was no time for regrets. She was taken aback, as if a dark blindfold had been put on her eyes. The floor quickly began to approach, and the girl buried her nose in the seal. Just before she lost consciousness, she noted that the cuts had not healed. Stupid girl. Itachi came out of the shower and dried his wet hair. He had just returned from a mission, and his mother immediately sent him to prepare for the holiday. Something inside tensed painfully, tugged and broke. My heart began to beat irregularly. He frowned and looked out the window. Brother? Sasuke looked into the room. Something happened? Ototo, come see Naruto now. The Uchiha looked at the younger seriously. I have a bad feeling. There was water all around. She poured into her ears and ran through her hair. She caressed the body, basked on her waves. Swaying, it took me somewhere far, far away. At the edge of her consciousness, the thought arose that she had not bandaged the wounds, and the water was causing blood to flow out of the veins. She needed to get up and do treatment, but Naruto felt so broken, so tired. Brainless girl. A thunderous growl was heard overhead. Stupid vessel! After this technique, your grandmother lay motionless for 2 days, and by that time she was already a master. And what were you thinking? Naruto barely opened one eye, then the other. A dim light flashed, and the gates of a huge cage appeared in front of her. The darkness swirled behind them, and 2 fiery eyes flashed in it. The light illuminated the cage, and for the first time she saw the fox. He was not at all the way he was portrayed in the books. Huge, red-haired, with black eyeliner around his eyes and mouth. His paws resembled human hands. At least Naruto was sure that he would be able to form a concentration seal. And behind his back were 9 fluffy tails curling and in constant movement. Are you Kyuubi? A crazy, blissful smile spread across his face. What a beautiful! Like a flame, no, like a sunset. Can I touch you? The demon choked and stared at her in shock. Aren't you scared, vessel? He growled. It's scary. Naruto twitched her chin. But I still want to touch it. The demon sighed somehow heavily, almost doomedly. One of the tails passed between the bars and wrapped the girl in a soft, fluffy cloud. Naruto pressed her cheek against him and purred, although the sound was more like a quiet squeak. The walls in front of my eyes began to spin, my eyelids became heavier, and my mind slowly slipped into slumber. I wanted to sleep uncontrollably. Hey! The tail shook her body. Don't you dare sleep. If you fall asleep now, you will lose your mind. And I will take over your body. So what? You're kind, Naruto muttered sleepily. I want to wipe your beloved village off the face of the earth, vessel. Destroy all its inhabitants, women and children. He growled, spat, the water under him boiled and hissed from the emitted ki. And still warm. And very good. The girl did not pay attention to the fox's words. She felt that he was not as evil as he wanted to appear. And I wasn't the least bit afraid of him. You must be lonely here in the dark? I know how difficult it is to live when they see only a weapon in you. She slightly opened her cloudy eyes, but she was unable to focus. The darkness at the edges expanded and approached the center. The fox growled and pulled her closer to him. Naruto almost drowned in darkness when a searing pain shot through her stomach. She arched, wheezed, then screamed, tearing her throat. That's better. There was satisfaction in the fox's voice. Take your strength and get out of here. There's a red-eyed girl calling you. Sasuke really knocked with all his might on the window, but could not get through the barrier. Groaning like an old grandmother, Naruto stood up and pulled him in by the hand, saying, Uchiha Sasuke. The barrier flashed and went out, accepting. And the girl sat down on the bed. Thanks to Kyuubi's help, she felt quite well, although she remained disgustingly weak. What else have you done, Dobe? Sasuke looked suspiciously at the seal on the floor, then at his friend's hands. Only now did Naruto notice that the cuts had healed, as if they were already 2 days old. Nothing, topic! She laughed and ruffled the hair on the back of her head. I went a little overboard with the seals, that's all. But the apartment now has a powerful blood barrier, she exclaimed, jumped up and collapsed on the bed with a groan. The walls danced before my eyes again. Immediately, as if by magic, a glass of water and a couple of stimulating pills appeared in front of her. Naruto chewed them, humming in gratitude. Sasuke crossed his arms over his chest, piercing her with a dissatisfied look. Don't be angry, Sasu-chan. The girl made pleading eyes. I won't. The Uchiha showed a bloodthirsty grin. I'd better tell Kagami-san about everything. He'll rip your head off himself. You won't dare date Bayo. The threat was serious. If Grandpa Ka finds out that she was experimenting with unfamiliar seals, it won't be done with just her head. Yes, she won't be able to sit for a month, despite the regeneration. Sasuke stuck out his tongue and dodged the pillow thrown by his now hard hand. Okay. Naruto finally waved it off wearily. Let's go to the holiday. Your mother asked you to come early? I don't know why. Eloquently, as always. Uzumaki commented languidly. Despite taking stimulants, she felt unwell. Lady Mikoto touched her forehead with concern. Are you okay, Naruto? You look pale. It's okay. The girl smiled weakly. I overworked myself in training, it's okay, I'll leave soon. And I will have fun with everyone, date Bayo. She threw her fist up. The Uchiha smiled and ruffled her hair. But first, let me get you cleaned up. The woman took a hanger with a dress and a small box of cosmetics from the closet. Mikoto-san. Uzumaki groaned doomedly. You know I can't stand this. You're a girl. The Uchiha said instructively and adamantly. So be a girl. At least 1 day a year. Besides, she blushed embarrassedly. I always dreamed of a daughter. Naruto buried her face in her hands and heard. Date Bayo. Mikoto beamed, realizing that the girl had given up. To begin with, she was driven into the bathroom, where she was rinsed in water with herbs. Then hairstyle. The woman combed the thick, heavy strands for a long time, passed them through her fingers, and caressed them. At first very intense, after half an hour Naruto dozed off, warming up under the gentle touches. Apart from Fumiko's grandmother, no one had ever stroked her. It was nice. Much to her relief, the Uchiha wore virtually no makeup. Light shadows and pale pink lipstick, just to highlight facial features. And a simple white dress with a knee-length skirt that flowed and flew apart with every step. Naruto couldn't help herself and spun around on her axis, laughing involuntarily. On your feet shoes with low, wide heels. We'll be outside. Mikoto smiled affectionately, turning the girl towards the large mirror. Well, look. At first Naruto couldn't believe her eyes. The shiny surface reflected anyone, but not her. A petite, short girl with protruding collarbones and thin wrist bones. The dress hugged her slim figure and emphasized her breasts that were beginning to form. Her golden hair, glistening in the lamplight, was tied up in an intricate bun and intertwined with white flowers. A couple of unruly strands hung down over her sparkling blue eyes. It couldn't be her. This is not Naruto Uzumaki. It's you, Mikoto whispered, placing her hands on her shoulders. You just need to know where to look. Naruto nervously tugged at the thick fabric bracelets on her wrists that she used to cover her scars. It's going to be a long evening. Itachi looked calmly at the assembled clanmates. Mom always organized holidays on a grand scale. The trees around the house were decorated with multicolored lanterns, and high tables brought out into the fresh air were laden with a variety of snacks and low-alcohol drinks. Everyone could come up and take what they wanted. Children scurried between the wooden legs, grabbed sweets and ran to the other end of the clearing, where the strings played quietly and twirled in the slow dances of the couple. Such events have always differed from traditional, strict in their etiquette, clan holidays, because they were created for young people with a simple goal to relax and unwind. Sasuke had already caught his eye. Kagami flashed a couple of times, nodding in greeting. But nowhere did he see the familiar blonde top of his head. And although the anxious feeling had subsided, Itachi was still worried about his student. A girl in a snow-white dress ran up to him. Flushed, cheerful, she shone like a ray of sunshine. Itachi, you're back. He was squeezed in a strong hug. I missed. Itachi looked into the joyful blue eyes, at the mustachioed cheeks, at Naruto? He was surprised. Yes? Didn't you recognize me, Datebale? The blonde was immediately offended. No, it's just you. For the first time, the genius of the Uchiha clan couldn't find the words. My nephew wants to say that you are very beautiful today, Naruchan. Kagami, who suddenly appeared, saved him. Let's go, they want to congratulate you. The man grabbed her hand and dragged her along. Hey, I told you, don't call me that, came an indignant cry. And where are you taking me, old man? Now do you understand what I was talking about? Shursui said contentedly, appearing over his shoulder. Even if Naruto dresses like a boy again tomorrow, those here will remember what she can be like. Itachi involuntarily pursed his lips. The friend was right. He caught the glances of his clanmates directed at the girl. Discontent grew in my chest. They seemed to him too intent, too attentive, too appraising. Too greedy. I wanted to grab Naruto and shake her out of these fancy clothes so she could be herself again. But what right does he have? He's just the coach of his brother's classmate. He put himself in such conditions. Discontent grew in my chest, it boiled and bubbled. Even dressed like a princess, Naruto continued to act as usual. Not an ounce of pretense, complete naturalness. Cheerful, perky laughter, loud voice, emotions splashing over the edge. Everything that calm, reasonable Uchihas usually don't like. However, Itachi saw that this did not deter anyone today. Many young people did not take their appraising glances off the Jinchuriki. And his father glowed with self-satisfaction, while remaining outwardly impassive. The genius gritted his teeth. The gaze slid over Naruto's waving arms and caught on the jewelry on his wrists. All the anger immediately cooled, as if a bucket of ice water had been knocked over. Itachi knew too well what was usually hidden under such bracelets. He moved towards the girl and grabbed her hand. I'm sorry, he apologized to Kagami. We need to talk. Naruto just blinked her eyes in surprise as he dragged her along. The shoji in the large room slammed shut with a slight thud. Itachi turned to the girl. What is this? He pointed to his wrists. He tore off strips of fabric. Why did you do this? Naruto backed away from him, fear flashing in her eyes. But now this only provoked the Uchiha. Have you decided to take your own life? he said contemptuously. I didn't think you were so weak. Who even gave you permission? Don't you dare! Naruto suddenly hissed. Itachi was thrown against the wall by a wave of terrifying ki. The girl straightened up and raised her chin proudly. For a moment it seemed to the guy that her eyes glowed scarlet. Don't you dare talk to me in that tone. I'm not a weakling, Datebao. And this is my life. And only I have the right to decide what to do and what not. She couldn't stand it. You're just a fool, Itachi! She shouted and ran out the door. Fool! Itachi slid down the wall with a groan. What a fool he is! What came over him anyway? Why did he suddenly attack Naruto like that? Why couldn't he, as before, by secretly looking closely, find out everything? He was scared. Scared of what they could do to the strong, resilient Naruto to make her want to cut her wrists. He knew how the village treated Jinchuriki. That's why he lost his temper and shouted at her. He was afraid for her. His insides felt like they were burning when he saw smooth, reddish stripes that were at least a week old. Kagami Uchiha entered the room. With a quiet rustle, the doors closed behind him, plunging the room into twilight. With an inscrutable face, he peered at his nephew for a long time, after which he came up and sat down next to him. We are considered people without feelings because of our eternal reserve. In fact, the secret is different. We know how to truly love. Only Tobirama was able to notice this, saying at one time that the Uchihas understand love better than anyone else. Our feelings are especially strong and destructive not only for the owner, but also for the one to whom they are directed. This is why we teach our children control from childhood. Uncle, because the fear of losing a loved one makes us lose our heads. And we may do things that we will soon regret. There was no condemnation or censure in the man's voice. He said things that everyone in the Uchiha clan knows. Itachi bowed his head, hiding behind his hair. He felt ashamed of his outburst. He lost his temper like a boy. I have to leave you, uncle. I need to ask my friend for forgiveness. The Uchiha stood up. Convey my apologies to your father. Of course. Kagami also stood up. Itachi nodded and flew out of the house. Naruto quickly walked towards her home. Fury burned and bubbled inside. I wanted to smash something. How dare he? Who is he? She had no words. And it was also offensive. Why did Itachi attack her like that? Didn't even ask anything. Does he really think she is? Lost in her thoughts, Naruto did not immediately notice how a group of tipsy young people appeared behind her. Some were wearing Chunin vests. Hey babe! One of them called out to her, the others supported him with drunken laughter. Yes, this is our demon. Look how dressed up she is. Another recognized her. She celebrates that she has become a shinobi. Like a spit in the back. Naruto winced and walked faster. She already regretted wasting her chakra so irrationally. And she agreed to put on these shoes that she couldn't walk through. And it was scary to stop and take off your shoes. In addition, due to the rapid metabolism, the effect of the pills had already ended, and weakness and dizziness returned. Blessed be the vitality of the Uzumaki, thanks to which the girl still stood on her feet. The shinobi followed her, shouting something and laughing. They even threw stones. Naruto tried not to make unnecessary movements so as not to provoke them. And with hope I looked out for the police patrol, but they seemed to disappear into thin air. Everything happened in an instant. The shinobi got tired of simply poisoning the victim, and they rushed after her. They chased the girl down the street with hooting. Naruto rushed, taking the short route to the house. It was precisely because of cases like this that she learned Konoha like the back of her hand. A painful tug on her arm, she was pulled and pushed into an alley. Naruto hissed, baring her teeth as her back met the wall. Well, we've caught up with you, demon. One of them grinned affectionately. The girl looked at them carefully, looking for weak points. And she cursed her stupidity. For the first time in her life, she left the house without a weapon, not even a simple kunai. I was in too much of a hurry for the holiday. And Mikoto took out all the pieces from her braid when she changed her hairstyle. One of the attackers threw his hand forward, trying to hit her in the stomach. Naruto slid to the side, grabbed the limb, and with a sharp upward movement broke it. The man howled. "Oh, you!" exclaimed the second, rushing at her. The others crowded around waiting their turn. In the small alley there was no room for an attack by the whole company, which Uzumaki took advantage of. She kicked her opponent against the wall, and released some Kikubi. Bestial rage, an animal desire to kill, confused the shinobi for a second. And this was enough time for Naruto to slide between the wide-set legs of another man, and find himself back on the illuminated part of the street. Ignoring the snapping of her dress, she rushed forward. The shinobi chased after her like hunters after a wild animal. Tenacious fingers dug painfully into my shoulders, tearing my dress and hair. Naruto snapped, even bit, while unraveling her feet from the straps of her shoes. And she understood. If the Chunin were a little more sober, she would never have left them. Finally, the shoes came off, the straps ripping the skin off her ankles. Naruto turned around and narrowed her eyes. These faces are distorted with rage, inhuman malice. And who else is the demon? The shinobi stopped, sensing something was wrong. The previously helplessly escaping prey now stood still, as if waiting for them. Naruto let them get closer and then threw her shoes at them. Even if you cannot imbue the projectile itself with chakra, you can give it significant acceleration. Like a spring. The next second she jumped onto the roof and started running. Screams behind us confirmed that the target had been hit. The wind whistled in my ears as I ran so fast. The main thing is to get home, she will be safe there. The barrier will not let anyone through. She flew up the stairs and rushed to her door. And then she jumped back, ready to fight. Ambush? Itachi Uchiha stepped out of the shadows and raised his hands. Naruto, I came to talk. The girl formed the seal of dispelling illusions. Nothing changed. It was Itachi. Let's go, she muttered, grabbed his hand and dragged him into the house. Uchiha Itachi. The barrier blinked in agreement. It was only when the door slammed that she was released. The adrenaline was wearing off and she began to tremble. She was scared, really scared. Because she was not a fool and knew what they could do to her there, in the dark alley. Her legs weakened and she began to fall, as if the doll's strings had been cut. And she would definitely have fallen to the floor if her strong arms hadn't caught her. Itachi sat down on the bed, pulled her onto his lap and began stroking her back. What's happened? He asked quietly. Naruto shrugged. Many people don't like that the demon has become a shinobi. She buried herself in a strong shoulder, absorbing his warmth. Itachi was strong, reliable, so confident. Cry if you want, he suggested. Naruto immediately jumped up. I'm not going to cry, Datebao. I told you, I'm not weak. And I will prove it. Everyone. That's why I came to apologize, the guy said softly and calmly. What? All the militant fervor went out. I want to apologize for yelling at you, Naruto. Itachi continued to stroke her back thoughtfully, a little absent-mindedly. I did not mean that. You are strong in spirit, but then I was scared. Not what you could do. And what they could do to you. Accept it. Naruto grinned. Itachi twitched the corners of his lips in response. They sat in silence for a while. Night had fallen on Konoha and the full moon was peeking through the windows. Naruto almost dozed off in the warm embrace when Itachi asked quietly, So where did you get these scars? I overdid it with protection. The girl yawned and nodded to the floor. The Uchiha activated his Sharingan to examine the pattern on the floor. Then he looked up at the student. It was dangerous, Naruto. You could have died. Uzumaki raised her eyebrows so expressively that Itachi involuntarily smiled. Okay, I won't interfere. Just remember, I worry about you. These words filled with a burning warmth inside. Naruto closed her eyes, rolling them on her tongue, repeating to herself. I will remember, Itachi. She nodded happily. And I also wanted to warn you about your mentor, Kakashi Hatake. His signature dish is the bell test. On teamwork, common spirit, and the like. He sent those who did not pass back to the academy. And he doesn't care about their status, ratings, and characteristics. But your team has no chance of failing the test. Why do you think? What's unusual about team number 7? Naruto thought, and Itachi closed his eyes, mechanically stroking the girl on the back. When he saw Naruto, disheveled, barefoot, in a torn, dirty dress, he thought that his worst assumptions had come true. And I couldn't help but admire the girl's self-control. In her eyes, fear mixed with determination. Even unarmed, she was ready to fight to the last. A strange calm descended on him as soon as she was in his hands. He ran the very tips of his fingers over his ragged back, over the bruises and scratches on his arms, and unraveled the remnants of his once elegant hairstyle. Fluffy strands tickled her chin as she nuzzled into his shoulder. It became easier when he received forgiveness. And her childish belligerence brought a smile. This is how a small, angry kitten snorts and bristles its fur. It was difficult for him to admit his anxiety, and he was fully rewarded by her happy appearance. It would probably be worth getting used to the fact that Uzumaki is the only one who is capable of causing a response in him. Shursui was right. He deliberately suppressed his emotions, because either the ANBU nor the genius of the clan were allowed to have them. He did this on purpose so as not to feel the pain of losing friends and acquaintances. I didn't want to get attached to anyone. Naruto broke all the rules. When she appeared nearby, the whole spectrum of sensations fell upon him. And he floundered, tried to get out of this whirlpool, but he was pulled deeper and deeper. But for the first time he felt truly alive. All Uchiha felt this way around Naruto. Even Sasuke, the always resentful younger brother who never got the attention of his father or brother. He smiled, laughed, snorted and chuckled, but he was alive. Itachi had already forgotten the last time his mother's eyes sparkled happily, when his father smiled openly. Naruto Uzumaki brought all this back to his family. This is probably her secret technique, a catalyst for true thoughts and feelings. Itachi looked at the sleeping girl with a smile. Yes, it was a tough day. He ran his fingers through the antennae on her cheeks and pressed on the tip of her nose, causing the girl to wrinkle her face and sneeze. So funny. Then his gaze fell on the bruises, and the guy frowned. Offending a child, especially a girl, is the last thing for a shinobi. And even if everything heals quickly, it still won't hurt to teach them a lesson, so that they think next time before even looking in her direction. He also doesn't like his brother's team coach. And what will prevent him from combining business with pleasure? Despite all the worries of the previous day, Naruto slept well and had a great rest. She stretched out and found Itachi slumped on the floor, surrounded by scrolls. She snorted humorously at her friend's concern and, carefully so as not to wake her, went to wash and prepare breakfast. It turned out that sleepy Uchihas are very touching creatures. And most importantly, silent. Naruto complained about the completely ruined dress. Mikoto-san would probably be angry. Listened to the rest of the compromising evidence against her mentor, fed her breakfast and pushed her out into the street through the window, having previously forced her to apply Sakura's henge. Itachi grimaced, but did it. For which I received another pie left over from yesterday. Remembering this, Naruto still giggled. Still, Sakura with a pie in her teeth, Datebao. Apparently, the enthusiastic Sakura arrived at the training ground long before dawn. Otherwise, why would she greet Naruto with such an angry look? The girl waved her hand in response and walked at a brisk trot under the nearest tree. Add more sweet minutes. A dissatisfied shadow fell on her. Yeah, with a wide, savory yawn. So we said hello? Sasuke fell next to him. Naruto immediately used his shoulder as a pillow. The Uchiha did not object, but gnashing of teeth was heard from Sakura. What do you allow yourself, Uzumaki? She jumped up. Get away from Sasuke-kun. And Kakashi-sensei is still not there, the Uchiha said into space. Sakura immediately switched to him and began to scold her mentor in every way. Itachi told you? Naruto whispered. That's good, Datebao. Do you have a plan? How to check Itachi's assumptions about our team. Nice. Will you tell me later? Sasuke-kun, aren't you listening to me at all? Sakura was upset. He doesn't listen to anyone, Sakura-chan. Naruto waved her hand. Another argument was interrupted by the appearance of the mentor. I was 2 hours late, wow, how punctual. He opened his mouth, but Naruto beat him to it. Did you guide the black cat along the road of life? She asked, batting her eyelashes. Or the old lady crossed your path, and you were forced to go around? She gave her mentor's favorite excuses, which her friend told her about this morning. The Jonin narrowed his visible eye and looked at her angrily. No. Last night someone beat up several Chunin and 2 civilians. They claim that I did it. Naruto bit her lip. She seemed to understand why Itachi was so sleepy in the morning. Why are you doing this, Kakashi-sensei? Sakura asked with plaintive intonations, pressing her hands to her chest. A quiet "Kai" was heard from the side. And then Sakura's wild squeal. What's wrong with you, teacher? Your hair. She poked her finger at her mentor's discolored hair. The paint exceeded all expectations. Kakashi's hair color was even brighter than Sakura's own. Naruto snorted and sprayed into her palm. With the last of his strength, he held the Uchiha's face nearby. Today you face a mortal test. The Jounin grimaced, again creating the illusion. Fatal? Sakura trembled, looking at her partners. They did not react in any way to the man's statement. Yes. You will need to take these bells away from me. He demonstrated 2 bells. You can use any of your techniques. Do everything to kill me and take the trophy. You only have until noon. Those who fail will not receive breakfast. He waved his hand towards 3 wooden pillars. Below them were bundles of bento boxes. Sakura's stomach growled sadly, and she blushed in embarrassment. And keep in mind, even though you graduated from the academy, I could easily return you there if you fail my test. Let's start. At his cry, all 3 evaporated from the training ground. Kakashi was left alone. Not for long. Uzumaki's shadow clones flew at him. He easily dispelled them, but fell into the tenacious clutches of a real girl who jumped on his back. However, she also flew away, sent by a powerful kick. Naruto looked at the calm Jounin, and he put his hand in his pocket and took out a book in a bright orange cover marked 18+. The girl snorted, turned around and ran into the nearest bushes towards Sasuke. Well, what was that? The friend said displeasedly, squatting down. Sakura sank down next to her, looking at her idol with reverence. Naruto shrugged with a smile. Yes, nothing special, Date-Bayo. So what's your plan? Hatake Kakashi didn't like children, and he happily gave them a test, the goals of which the team did not understand and, therefore, could not pass. After which he sent them back to the academy, where they were given another teacher. He himself continued to run on single missions, hide from doctors and look forward to new releases of Jiraiya's books. The current intake has broken all records for inducing negative feelings in its mentor. From the very first moment of meeting them, troubles began to fall on Kataka, like out of a bag. His hair, his reputation, which was pretty much tarnished after the testimony of the beaten Chunin. It was decided that an illusion technique had been used on them, but still they looked askance and warily at Kakashi. The Jounin would have gladly abandoned Team Number 7 if it weren't for the Hokage's personal order. What was the third thinking when he made him the mentor of a hated man? Because he hated Naruto Uzumaki with every fiber of his soul. She was the cause of the death of his teacher and his wife. Minato-sensei was the first to believe in Kakashi after his father's death, who became not only his mentor, but also his friend. He and Kushina-san replaced his family and became his closest people. Kakashi sincerely admired his teacher and was proud of him. And Naruto only embarrassed him. The stupid, noisy blonde inherited nothing from her brilliant father. All she did was scream and be indignant. She smiled at her offenders and did not give them back. She could not master basic techniques and could only get out using Kushina-san's chakra. It's unlikely that Minato-sensei would be proud of such a child. As expected, Naruto immediately went head-on using her favorite technique. She hung on the teacher, and Itachi could hardly contain the force, throwing her back against the tree. He wanted to nail her down so that he wouldn't get in the way. Uchiha Sasuke interested him much more. One of the heirs of the clan, he was probably trained by local geniuses Uchiha Itachi and Uchiha Shursui. I wanted to see what they achieved. And then the performance began, which Itachi certainly did not expect from the genin. Naruto's smiling face appeared in the foliage of the tree, right above the wide branch where he was sitting. Itachi prepared to repel the attack, but the girl, using a fishing line covered with something sticky, whistled the book away from him. She winked playfully and disappeared into the forest. The Jonin rushed after it. After all, it was a gift copy given to him by the Toad Sannin himself. The blonde hair flashed so quickly, it seemed as if you just stretched out your hand. Carried away, Kakashi did not notice how he stepped on a couple of fishing lines. The kunai whistled as they flew over the head of the crouched shinobi. And Naruto turned sharply to him and opened a long scroll, from which kunai and shurikens sprayed in different directions. Chaotically, without a system, apparently, the scroll was created by a non-professional, but in this situation it was the best option. Even the replacement technique could not help much, because weapons were flying in all directions. Only with the help of the Sharingan hidden under the bandage did Kakashi manage to dodge the projectiles fired with enormous force in time. He gulped when he saw the hole the small-looking Saban had made in the tree trunk. The Uzumaki's evil power was beyond measure. Meanwhile, Naruto returned to the middle of the training ground, where she disappeared with a slight poof. Shadow clone. The book smoothly floated to the place where she stood. Kakashi looked around intently, rightly fearing a trap. The chakra of his students was found in the forest nearby. They were probably planning an attack with traps again. This means he has time to choose a gift. Kakashi was just bending over the book when a polyphonic chorus was heard. Kato, big fireball. Waves of flame, strengthened by the wind, flew at him from four sides. The Jonin didn't expect that Sasuke already mastered this technique. Besides, someone helped him, reinforced the attack. He couldn't jump away. Above his head, Naruto was opening another weapon scroll. I had to go underground. When Kakashi surfaced, 4 pairs of Sasuke and Naruto were looking at him. They held hands, wringing chakra, uniting it. A primitive and very painful method, because in battle it is usually impossible to get so close to a comrade. Besides, further separation is very painful, and can only be performed by a professional medic. But for genin it's not bad, very good. The Yu duet, the Uchiha Uzumaki tandem, was well coordinated and well worked. They understood and complemented each other, while Sakura stomped on the edge of the clearing, nervously clenching her fists. Now Kakashi understood why the third included this girl on his team. Compared to them, Sakura was frankly weak, her chakra reserve was small. Forced to constantly be distracted by her, the Uchiha Uzumaki would certainly slow down their own development as ninjas. And they seemed to understand this, because they didn't pay the slightest attention to Sakura. Holding hands, they formed shadow cloning seals. Sasuke directed, and Naruto served as the main generator and source of energy. Copies of not only Uzumaki, but also Uchiha flew at Kakashi. The originals themselves were lost in the crowd, and only the jingling of the bells on their belts betrayed their attempts. With the distraction, the Jonin threw a kunai straight at Sakura. She fell to the ground with a squeal, covering her head with her hands. Sasuke didn't even raise an eyebrow, and Naruto, hissing something through clenched teeth, pushed her classmate into the bushes. The Uchiha covered her actions with another fireball. Kakashi didn't like this. Thanks to her excellent chakra control, Sakura can become the squad's medic, which means she must also be on the battlefield, keeping track of who is wounded and where. Don't run headlong through the forest. And again he was wrong in his assumptions. The partners did not need ironing. When another kunai touched Sasuke, who was hissing in pain, and hit him on the shoulder, Naruto was immediately nearby and put her palm on it. She was enveloped in a familiar greenish chakra, which quickly removed all traces of injury. This means Naruto has the ability for medical techniques and excellent chakra control. Kakashi wondered what else the third spies had missed in their reports. They could have fought for a long time, since Naruto had a truly huge reserve of chakra, but the alarm clock that Kakashi had set at the beginning of the test rang. Team 7 gathered in front of the wooden posts. Naruto was tied up, the others stood nearby. "Mentor, why am I tied?" She was indignant. The blonde looked shabby, a little exhausted, but she struggled with 3 times the effort. "Because you pushed your teammate away, didn't send guards with her, didn't protect her, although you had such an opportunity." The Jonin shrugged. "In the end, you all failed the test. Why do you think? What did I want to achieve from you today?" "Teamwork." Sasuke shrugged. "Exactly. And as a result, only you and Uzumaki worked together. Sakura was generally hanging out somewhere." The girl bowed her head, accepting the reproach. Kakashi chuckled to himself. While the Yu were pressing on him, he sent a clone for the third member and plunged it into the lung with Genjutsu. "Sorry, sensei," she said quietly. I'm lost. And this happened because the others did not support you." Naruto raised her nose proudly, Sasuke chuckled and turned away. Sakura sank even more. "But you still have a chance to improve your situation. I give you 2 hours to come up with a new plan that includes Haruno. If you fail, you will never become a shinobi. Naruto, as the initiator of the whole idea, must remain attached. Feeding her is also prohibited." With these words, Kakashi moved with his shunshin behind the nearest tree. "Dobe, are you too hungry?" Sasuke's voice reached him. "Can't wait, team." The girl chuckled. "Well, okay." The Uchiha shrugged and began to eat. After stomping around a bit, Sakura followed his example and even tried to feed him with her chopsticks. To which Sasuke glared at her like she was crazy. And Naruto hung on the ropes as if she had fallen asleep. They clearly had no intention of developing a plan. Kakashi rubbed the bridge of his nose tiredly. He knew that in a real fight, carried out by a higher-ranked ninja, the plan would be successful. The medic could have easily waited for them in the same bushes, but he couldn't praise Naruto. Something in him resisted this. By the end of the first hour, Sakura began to whine. "Sasuke-kun, when will we come up with a plan with my participation? Sasuke-kun, you also want to become a shinobi? I'm about to become the strongest kunoichi. Sasuke-kun, Sasuke-kun, Sasuke-kun." The Uchiha sadly poked his wand at the wasabi. Uzumaki snored peacefully. Sakura whined. Idle, in a word. By the end of the second hour, Sakura was exhausted. She constantly tugged at the guy, cautiously looking at the training ground around her, waiting for the teacher. The Uchiha's nerves could not stand it. "No, Sakura. We won't invent anything. We don't need extras on the team." Uzumaki woke up from his scream. "Team! Don't yell at Sakura like that." She was indignant. Haruno looked at her hopefully. "And you, Sakura, in these 2 hours could offer at least one worthwhile idea. Datebao, you were the best on the stream." Sakura lowered her head, even her ears turned red with shame. This was the moment Kakashi chose to appear. "Well, I'm waiting for your answer." "We don't have a plan," the Uchiha answered defiantly. "I was sleeping," Uzumaki admitted. "Team didn't wake me up in time," she complained immediately. "Dobe," his partner snapped. Sakura was silent. She almost cried out of despair. "Ino will become a shinobi, but she will not. And Sasuke-kun will not gain fame either." Kakashi literally saw the thoughts wandering through the girl's head. And these two also gave him a choice. He would have already disbanded any other team and sent them home, but this was a direct order from the Hokage. He had no right to violate it, so as not to receive punishment for failure to fulfill his duty. But if he now deviates from the conditions he himself set, his reputation in the eyes of these children will go down the drain. It is also worth considering that they will not keep their mouths shut. And if Haruno is simply happy from the very fact of the teacher's mercy, no one really communicates with Uzumaki, then Sasuke can calmly tell everything to his family, and through them, in turn, all of Konoha will know. "Okay, I accept your decision," he nodded. "From now on, you are team number 7, I am your mentor. And you and I have a long way to go to become a real squad." I'm waiting for you tomorrow at 9 o'clock at the Hokage residence. Let's take on a mission and learn to work together. So, I will become a ninja? Sakura squealed with delight. The sorrows were forgotten. Sasuke-kun, do you hear? Kakashi winced at the loud sound and left as a shunshin. And I no longer saw how Sasuke and Naruto exchanged gloomy glances. Everything is as we thought. He didn't even know that it was you who actually came up with the plan. A tired sigh. Come on, walk me home, and then I'll start dividing the chakra. Naruto tossed around on the bed, unable to sleep. Their suspicions were confirmed. With each task Sasuke became gloomier and gloomier. And more often they began to arrange training with Itachi. The elder Uchiha saw their condition, but did not ask anything, for which Naruto was sincerely grateful to him. Despite the dramatic statement about working together, they did not learn to work together. Before the very first task, Kakashi taught them to walk through trees and walls, which Naruto and Sasuke were very good at, and Sakura quickly mastered. And then the routine began. Tasks of the lowest rank, endless weeding of vegetable gardens, collecting scrap metal around the village, searching for lost cats and dogs. Fat Tora jumped onto the bed and purred loudly. He rubbed his forehead against his hand, demanding his share of affection. Naruto grinned. He ran away again, and only today they returned him to his owner. Well, it was funny when the harmful cat scratched Sakura, jumped on Sasuke, and even reached out to Kakashi. Naruto had to bribe him to persuade the animal to briefly return to the clutches of its owner. Tora looked at her with a skeptical and pitying look until the bribe grew to 2 fish, a bowl of cream and a bowl of sour cream. For a whole week now, their training consisted of walking around the village, and walking around the village. This simply cannot continue. Naruto jumped up and asked for forgiveness from the hissing Tora, displeased with being suddenly dropped onto the bed. I quickly changed my clothes and flew towards the Hokage residence. We urgently need to talk to the old man, he will probably give them an interesting mission. The residents greeted her with silence and coolness. The working day was long over, and the employees fled to their homes. Only those on duty remained. On the Hokage floor, Naruto met Shiranui-ginma. For some reason, he and a few other jonin were quite nice to the Jinchuriki. They never bullied me, they helped me get home when the offenders were especially zealous. And sometimes they fed him, while constantly looking around. Naruto didn't know what their goals were, but she remembered them all just in case. And the one with a scar, the other in a bandage. And Ginmu, who seemed to be the main one among them. And now, seeing her, the jonin jumped from the ceiling and went to chew his samban at the other end of the corridor, on the windowsill. And Naruto headed towards the door. Familiar voices were heard behind her. One of them clearly belonged to Kakashi. The third suffered from severe paranoia and always not only locked the door, but also activated a special barrier created under the second Hokage. Only he did not take into account that the barrier was created by the Uzumaki, and the red demons were always on their own. And a symbol of blood relationship was included in each seal, allowing blood relatives to bypass them. Naruto's grandmother worked for the residents so that the Jinchuriki could eavesdrop without fear of being discovered. He masters medical techniques at a fairly high level. She also works great with Sasuke. There is a suspicion that they are taught by the same person. A month ago, my people found out that she was creating small food seals and special pills for someone. We bugged her apartment, but a week ago the connection was lost. The third was unhappy. Kakashi, you have to find out how she found out about Fuinjutsu and for whom she creates the seals. These are just small grocery stores. There is misunderstanding in the mentor's voice. Naruto stuck to the doors. Ginma pretended to be a ficus partner nearby. For now. The third corrected him, taking a drag. Despite everything, she is an Uzumaki, a full-fledged representative of this clan. This means Fuin is in her blood, as well as the willfulness of the red demons. You remember my order, right? Team number 7 must pass the selection without fail. The girls seemed to see how Kakashi stood at attention, minting words. Do not teach Uzumaki Naruto equally with the rest of the group. The village's weapons should be moderately strong and controlled. Contain the development of Uchiha Sasuke, prevent situations conducive to the manifestation of the Sharingan. Carry out low-rank missions, exercise control over the individual activities of the wards. Exactly. Sarutobi apparently nodded. I don't want a repeat of the story of 12 years ago. Kushina, despite all my respect for her, was too headstrong a girl. However, she was an excellent jonin, a real shinobi of our village. Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto does not have the abilities of Kushina Uzumaki and the fourth Hokage. Kakashi snapped angrily. Right. Make sure it stays that way. She shouldn't know about the QB inside her. Understood. May I go? Go, Kakashi-kun. Hitaki went out through the window, and Naruto slid down the wall to the floor, covering her mouth with her hands to prevent a scream from escaping. Burning tears flowed down my cheeks. Another illusion shattered. The closed training ground of Kagami's house was quiet, only the wind skimmed the treetops. Sitting under a tree, Itachi leisurely sharpened the kunai and laid out the weapon on the scroll, preparing it for sealing. Habitual, mechanical actions allowed me to think about my own thoughts. As he had feared, his and his father's suspicions about Kakashi's appointment were confirmed. Despite the obvious provocation of the children, he still agreed to become their mentor, which was completely inconsistent with his characterization. True, the goals remained unclear. Kakashi didn't teach the children anything, but he didn't harm them either. He tried not to talk to them at all. With his nose buried in a book, he dragged them on rank D missions. Itachi carefully learned about the activities of the other mentors. Hitaki, Kakashi, and Sarutobi Asuma were recognized as the most irresponsible. However, Asuma can be forgiven. His team Ino Shikacho had their own well-established scheme of actions. Parents probably trained their children within the clans. Not being a mentalist, he could do nothing to help Ino. And Shikamaru himself coped with the position of a full-time strategist and genius. Only Choji remained, but the teacher was closely involved with him. While Hitaki taught the team only one thing, walking on walls and trees, without bothering with water. Itachi suspected that he was trying to make life easier for himself in this way, because this way the guys moved faster. For the first 2 days, Ototo was still angry, growling, and then, with stubbornness, gritting his teeth, he began intensive training. Now he was silent to all questions about the teacher and assignments. But Naruto has always had a hot temper. She gave a succinct description of every day spent in the company of a jonin, whom she had already dubbed for her love for the famous series of books. And she once again made fun of him. Itachi burst out laughing when he realized what Naruto had done. During the first attack, she quietly attached a Sabata-type parasite sealed to his bandage. The little bug stole chakra from the wearer, destroying any illusion with which he was hiding behind himself. It was impossible to detect it, nor was it possible to wash it off. Just burn it, but for this you had to find it first. Several similar seals remained with the elder Uchiha from the time of the Third War, and Kagami for a long time did not dare to present this Fuin to his granddaughter. However, meeting the brightly colored Hitaki on the streets, I have never regretted it. She loved to circle around the clearing, loudly indignant, letting off steam. After such scenes, even Sasuke thawed out a little and looked at the world more simply, as if the girl was expressing his thoughts too. Their mutual understanding reached its peak. Itachi was even a little jealous of such trust. Only Naruto knew about the girl Sasuke was going on dates with. Sometimes she even covered for him. She often gave him money to do shopping. Jinchuriki traditionally did not sell anything worthwhile, prices were inflated, so it practically did not appear on the market, happily exploiting Sasuke and Itachi. Lost in thought, Itachi missed Naruto's appearance at the edge of the clearing. Pale, like a ghost, with burning cheeks and red, tear-stained eyes, she walked towards him with a decisive step and sat down next to him. And then, in a calm, indifferent tone, she recounted everything that she had heard near the Hokage's office. She seemed to have burned out. In her life, the third was something unshakable. Strict but kind, he he always treated the orphan well. This was a relief. If the village leader liked her, then not all people were bad. And now, her world was collapsing, losing its supports. After all, the Hokage did not tell Kakashi everything, he hid a lot, but his opinion was visible in short phrases. Naruto gasped as she fell. She was losing her endless light. And Itachi felt almost physically ill from this. Betrayal always hurts deeply. So he pulled her onto his lap and squeezed her in his arms, as he had done once after the holiday. Naruto clung to him. She was shaking, but she was no longer crying. She raised her face with sore eyes and asked in a quiet, broken voice, "Don't betray me, Itachi. Not you. I won't survive this." In response, the Uchiha hugged her and pressed her even tighter, feeling her melancholy and pain as if it were his own. He wished he could take them from her. "I won't betray you," he vowed. "Never." And Naruto relaxed in his arms. Chapter 4 Petals on the Water. Itachi walked down the Konoha street without looking around, automatically avoiding oncoming passers-by. In his hand he held a pair of dango sticks, which he devoured mechanically, almost not paying attention to the taste of the sweetness. And when did his senpai become like this? For as long as he had known him, Hatake Kakashi had been a person of his own. He kept to himself and hardly interacted with anyone. He couldn't be called the life of the party, but he used to take a responsible approach to any mission. He always distinguished between good and bad, dark and light. If rules had to be broken for the sake of innocent people's lives, he broke them. If it was possible to bypass orders, he bypassed them. So what happened after he left ANBU? Oh, Itachi guessed that this was due to a low-level technique called rumors. After all, at first he himself did not take Naruto seriously, he succumbed to public opinion. It's so easy to see in a person what you expect to see. And it often takes a strong slap in the face to come to your senses and start thinking with your own head. Hello to the kitchen front fighters. Shursui, who had sneaked up on him, slapped him on the shoulder. "Hello, brother." Sasuke approached from the other side. "Mom sent us to help you. She said that you couldn't take everything away alone, but left the scrolls at home. Have you returned from your mission yet, Otuto? How was it?" Sasuke grimaced expressively, causing Shursui to snort. "It was an ordinary cattle drive." He shrugged. Naruto surrounded the herd with her clones and simply escorted them to their destination. "I'm more interested in something else, Sasuke." Shursui narrowed his expressive eyes, looked carefully, and spoke insinuatingly. "When did you learn to combine chakra with Uzumaki? This is difficult and dangerous." Itachi became interested too. He had heard about his Otuto and Naruto's dual technique, but had never seen it performed. For some reason they flatly refused to show it. Shursui is right, combining chakra flows was an extremely dangerous and risky thing. Alien energy appeared in the shinobi, which belonged to his partner. He could understand the feelings and emotions of another, could find him anywhere. They became twice as strong, and twice as vulnerable as the wounds of one affected the other. Such a merger required time and long, careful preparation. That is why it was never used on the battlefield. There was a risk of injuring its own circulation system. The separation was usually carried out by high-ranking physicians for several days. When he first heard about this, he wanted to kick the ears of both brainless genin, who could come out of the fight with Kakashi completely crippled. But Uzumaki looked with her crystal blue eyes and said that there was no danger. She would never risk her friend's life. Sasuke thought and scratched his nose. He searched for words while his gaze slid over the people walking nearby, the noisy shops and cafes. This is not really a union. More precisely, it's not at all. We do not go deep into the circulation system. Our connection remains close to the surface of contact. And through it, Naruto transfers neutral, medical chakra to me. Since there are no wounds, she goes to my reserve, feeding me. The Uchiha pondered the words of their younger relative. Who separates you after this? Shursui asked a question. Naruto shares it. Sasuke shrugged. Since the connection is shallow, it is not a problem for her to separate her own chakra from mine. She is so bright. How do you feel about this? Itachi looked intently at his brother. Regret settled in his chest at the thought that Sasuke had access to the girl's feelings, her hidden desires. And slight envy, to be so close to someone. His answer dispelled all illusions. Pain! Sasuke snapped, turning away. Throughout the entire fight there was pain. And I know that Naruto feels it many times more strongly. Why do you think so? Shursui asked. Her chakra is alive, poisonous, dangerous, and predatory. Even the smallest particle, penetrating into me, seems to burn its way through my body. And I feel the hatred of the one who sits inside Uzumaki. The hatred is for me. And Naruto is forced to sift it out, filter the chakra in order to send it to me, already purified, neutral. Because I can't handle her real energy. And no one can. Sasuke turned and looked seriously into his brother's eyes, as if he was trying to convey something at the level of thoughts and instincts. Have you already tried? Shursui interrupted the conversation with glances. Yes, at the very beginning. Sasuke mechanically rubbed his palm. At the first stage, it is the unclean chakra that is required. She provides communication. We cannot feel each other's emotions, between us there is only pain from the merger. Itachi imagined how Naruto and Sasuke were forced to push through pain, abstract themselves from it in order to fight. And Naruto also constantly cleanses his chakra, separating the Kyuubi energy from it to pass it on to his partner. What kind of load does this put on their brain? No wonder they don't want to repeat it in a quiet environment. And no more conditions? Shursui continued to ask curiously. Well, their chakra compatibility, for example. We need to think about the same thing, strive for the same thing. With all my mind. We only did this twice. Once we wanted to surprise Kagami-san, and the second time we wanted to defeat Mentor Kakashi. How did you even learn about this technique? Kagami-san gave us a scroll with a detailed description. You know, your father never ceases to amaze me. Itachi said into space, squinting his eyes at his friend. He hummed and nodded. But it's an amazing feeling to fight and not think about your chakra reserves. Sasuke rolled his eyes dreamily. Dobe doesn't even think about how lucky she is with the reserve. Itachi chuckled. He used to think so too. It seemed to him that the girl did not think at all about the amount of her own chakra. She easily created clones, used energy-consuming techniques, relying only on luck and regeneration. Until I realized that little Uzumaki doesn't do anything for nothing. The upbringing of the cunning Kagami-san had an effect. Using techniques that he himself considered irrational, the girl's canals were expanded, and the hearth was developed. Improved the body. Life taught her to save, and this saving was expressed in literally everything. After another grueling workout, the girl still had strength, but the next morning Itachi saw how, during the next mission, she climbed and sprayed the apple trees herself, although she could create clones to help. He's already used to it. If Naruto uses economical techniques and uses up energy during training, it means he's planning to do something at home. And you won't be able to dissuade her. Every day Itachi realized that he was becoming more and more entangled in the girl. He could not predict her reaction and looked forward to her every answer, every grimace in order to deduce at least some pattern of her logic. There was no pattern. And it was fascinating. Easy to remember. Shursui nodded forward. Itachi saw the answer to his thoughts. At the store window, Naruto shifted nervously and looked closely at something inside. A whole heap of various emotions was displayed on her face. The girl was biting her sponge and counting the money in her palm. Hello? Sasuke flew up to his friend. What are you doing? Naruto jumped. Don't scare me like that, Daipeo! She exclaimed indignantly, swinging at her comrade. He deftly dodged, his eyes flashing cheerfully. What are you doing here, Naruto-chan? Shursui sang. Nothing special, Shure-chan. The girl stuck her tongue out at him, smiled welcomingly at Itachi and turned back to the display case. I need to buy new shoes. Kakashi-san said that he would ask the Hokage for a long mission of a higher rank, and my sandals would not survive a long journey. The Uchiha glanced over the girl's thin legs. Indeed, her sandals were practically falling apart piece by piece. Naruto began to count the money again, her brow furrowing in an amused manner. Standard shinobi shoes could be purchased at any specialty store. It was made from a special material that conducts chakra. Ordinary blue sandals were in particular demand, although not the most beautiful and roughly made, but strong, durable, and cheap. But for those who wanted to look beautiful even on missions, especially for kunoichi, craftsmen could even make special high-heeled shoes. Such shoes cost an order of magnitude more, but their quality corresponded to the price. In the window there were closed soft shoes with flat soles, without heels, with thin ribbons, which were usually tied at the ankles. Rich blue with an almost invisible dark red pattern along the edges of the neckline. Beautiful, conscientiously made, they were the ones that attracted the girl's attention. "Are you short of money?" Itachi asked softly and carefully, so as not to offend. Naruto blushed and shook her head so that her braid was jumping in the air. "No, that's enough." She sighed heavily. "But Datebao." Her expressive face reflected a serious struggle with a terrible temptation. On the one hand, she wanted to be at least a little beautiful, and on the other hand, she wanted to save money. Surely, all her pocket money that she managed to put aside will go towards this purchase. "But I still want so much." Itachi would definitely tell her that he didn't think she needed any jewelry. But for the first time, Naruto wished for something for herself, just like that, not out of necessity. Okay. She decided on something. "Hello, sandals." With that scream, she went into the store and returned with a pair of standard shinobi shoes. She tried not to look at the window display. Itachi glanced sideways at his brother and friend, who nodded in understanding and dragged the girl towards the sweets shops. And the Uchiha himself went inside the shoe store. "Good afternoon." The old man with light, faded eyes smiled warmly. "How can I help?" "I'd like a pair of shoes from the window." Itachi pointed with his chin. "And packet. A gift for that young kunoichi?" The old man nodded understandingly. "Ask." As soon as the beautiful box was in your hands, joyful anticipation spilled inside, it bubbled, asking to come out with cheerful laughter. Only the Uchiha's restraint allowed him to save face. Itachi quickly put the gift away in the scroll, vividly imagining Naruto's reaction and her happy face when she saw it. And he wanted to smile. In a semi-dark room, in a huge cage, a huge fiery red fox was dozing on the water surface. His 9 tails did not stop for a minute, now wriggling, now sending weak circles through the water, disturbing the chakra. Fiery eyes blazed from under closed eyelids. People are such funny creatures. At first he watched them with curiosity, but then he hated them. The monster, the creation of Shinigami, Kyubi no Yoko. He had many names, so many that his true name has already been forgotten. Kurama. She called him Dawn Light. As soon as he closed his eyes, he saw scarlet hair and scarlet eyes. Like blood, like cherries. Like a sunset. A warm smile, a sunbeam, a gentle, light hand running its fingers through the thick fur. And the smell of the sea. It seemed that she was soaked through with it, even from the time she lived in Uzushio. His first cage, that damn Mito Uzumaki proudly told him that it was impossible to keep an animal like him free. Too dangerous. Animal. He never forgave her for this word, and for 15 years he undermined her from the inside, draining her strength, disrupting the circulation of chakra. The body of the hated Uzumaki could not stand it, and soon, secretly from everyone, he was given another vessel. And until the end of her life, Mito wore seals filled with his chakra in her hair in order to deceive others. Sh was different. Inside it, the Kyubi was not crucified, a huge cage, an almost limitless supply of water chakra on the floor and floating lamps under the ceiling, dispelling the darkness with their flickering. She came often, almost every week, and brought with her the smell of the sea and cherries, and their rich color in their eyes and hair. Her tongue was as poisonous as his chakra, and as sharp as the blade of the best master. She could remain silent throughout the visit, sit leaning against the bars of the cage, or she could talk incessantly, talking about everything in the world. Once she even sang sadly, but she never cried. With horror, Kyubi realized that he was looking forward to a new visit. He began to count his time with meetings. And she admitted that she had no friend closer than him. That's how he remembered his name. So he became the Dawn Light. He loved her, sincerely, truly. He hasn't had a best friend since Old Man Rakuto. He forgot about hating people, and how can you hate the world in which SHE exists? And then there was their last meeting. The assault on Yuzushiogakyure, the ritual hall with seals and the fearful gray eyes of her daughter. Then she came to him for the last time. The crumbling walls of the cage and the stones falling into the water almost drowned out her quiet, cracked whisper. And she brought with her the smell of cherries and the sea. Kurama was even happy when he found himself chained to a huge ball. The chains held him tightly, the pins pierced his palms and tails, and this pain was sobering, forcing Kyubi to awaken and remember past hatred. And growl, tearing your throat. It seemed to him that he had gone crazy when he again found himself in a huge hall, flooded with water, inside a cage. Again and again he saw in his dreams how the cell was destroyed, how stones fell on a fragile human figure. I relived every meeting, every emotion from communicating with her. And the pain of her death. He was thrashing about, angry, permeating everything around with his rage, lashing out at his Jinchuriki. Because in the depths of my soul I was waiting for a silhouette in a red kimono to appear at the end of the hall. And instead of it, a blonde something appeared, almost floating into the clutches of the Shinigami. This was the perfect chance to take over her body, to break free. He could not. Because she smelled of the sun, cherries and the sea. She began to come to him almost every day. At first she was silent, huddled in a corner, and then she began to ask. And in these naive, childish questions he heard her. The same facial features, the shape of the eyes, the same nervous word, Datebeo. It's probably inherited. Something that Kushina didn't have, but that her mother and daughter had. The best and secret technique of the Uzumaki family is trust. Naruto trusted people, and they unwittingly learned to trust her. Not all. Only those that could see and understand. He still couldn't come to terms with it. Especially with the presence of the red-eyed one next to her. And he took revenge, burning him with his hatred. And Naruto, appearing, shook her head and asked not to harm her friend. The demon snorted and proudly turned away, ignoring the girl's requests. Naruto ruffled the hair on the back of her head and laughed nervously, saying that Sasuke and Itachi would definitely like him. The second Jinchuriki of the Kyubi, who never existed, and the fourth, they were very similar. But Kurama never saw her in Naruto. Naruto is Naruto. And period. Are you planning revenge on Sasuke again? At the end of the hall a figure in a blue sundress appeared as usual. And why can't you leave him alone? The girl approached the cage, brazenly pulled one of the tails out and sat on it, drowning in fluffy, chakra-soaked fur. Because he is an Uchiha. Descendant of this Madara. Kyubi growled, grinning. But Sasuke is not Madara. But he might become one, said the fox stubbornly. It's in their blood, the thirst for power and murder. Itachi, for example, is not like that. He's actually kind of strange, a pacifist genius. Kyubi snorted. And then the tail was hit by a small, strong fist, backed up with chakra. Don't you dare offend Itachi. Lightning danced in his blue eyes. Otherwise, next time I'll come and read children's fairy tales. Get impudent, vessel! The demon squinted, bringing his muzzle almost close to the girl's frowning face. Aren't you afraid of me at all? Roared throughout the entire room. What do you think, Datebeo? I think that over the years you look more and more like your grandmother, the fox said with a sigh and tiredly sank to the floor of the cage. Naruto lit up as if this was the best praise in the world. Am I becoming as strong and brave as her? No. Kyubi grinned vindicatively. She also bothered me at first. Well, okay. After a short silence, the girl pouted, but quickly moved away. You promised to tell me about that technique without seals. Rasengan, it seems. Kyubi covered his eyes with his paw again, afraid of going blind from his carrier's enthusiasm. he undertook to teach the stupid girl, afraid of repeating the story with the seals. After all, she will be able to go beyond the brink during her experiments. She already had control, and good control. Skills in hand-to-hand combat and weaponry, too. And the Uchiha will not leave her without training. So Lise decided to focus on techniques. His instinct told him that the girl would not simply be left alone. Suddenly Naruto raised her serious eyes. You said that this was my father's technique. How do you know about her? The underground ritual hall of the Yuzushiogakure Palace, illuminated by lamps, reappeared before the fox's eyes. Again he saw a woman in a scarlet kimono chained to the pillars with special seals, bloodied and pale. And a crying girl with gray eyes and nearby seals. Your mother's seal was created under emergency conditions. And then they didn't redo it. There was no time left for this, because officially Kushina was already supposed to be in Konoha. Despite the strong structure, there were still loopholes through which I could see the world around me. A collapsing cage and falling stones, a dream that has become a curse. I have one too? Naruto narrowed her eyes. No, Kyubi snorted. Your father did his best to isolate me. Until you come down here, I can only reach you when you are emotionally unstable. Okay. He didn't know what thoughts were wandering through her head when she frowned thoughtfully like that. Then her eyes sparkled again. So are you going to teach me or not? The fox laughed hoarsely. A couple of hours later, he carefully poked with his claw the exhausted carcass of the Jinchuriki, spread out like a star on the water. Naruto was breathing heavily, her hands were shaking, and her hair was sticking to her sweaty forehead. How hard it is! She moaned and moved her fingers. But I still won't give up, Datebao. This is my ninja way. Kurama poked her again. You'd better come back. He vaguely shook his head. There, it seems, someone is calling you, with the power of youth. How do you know that? The girl raised her head. While you are here, the passage is open, and I can catch something from the outside world. The fox shrugged his shoulders. In general, that's all for today. Take the chakra and get out of here. And don't forget to train, vessel! He finally shouted. The translucent silhouette waved his hand encouragingly. The smell of sun, sea, and cherries remained in the air. Naruto opened her eyes, stretched, and noticed her mercilessly shaking hands. But there's nothing you can do about it. Pain in the canals is a small price to pay for training with Kurama. She shook herself and went to the window where Lee was banging. Naruto, are you okay? I will share the power of youth with you. The girl opened the window. Come in. She invited a friend. I noticed the bloody bandages on my hands. Has Gaisen overdone it again? He showed me the real power of youth. The guy screamed joyfully. And gave very valuable lessons. With a laugh, the girl led the guest into the kitchen. They met Lee and became friends at the academy. Officially, Naruto did not know the Uchiha and could not be in their quarter, so as not to attract unnecessary attention. So she had to run to Grandpa Ka along circuitous paths under the cat's fluffy henge. And one day, after school, I came across a clearing in which an unfamiliar guy with thick eyebrows was selflessly hitting a tree. His knuckles were broken and the bandages were soaked in blood, but he continued training, gritting his teeth. Then Naruto treated him, gave him painkillers on the path, and ran away. But since then, she often began to appear in this clearing, help an unfamiliar boy, follow his training, listen to stories full of emotions. She fed him between training sessions, gave him stimulants of her own making, and in return, Lee allowed him to use weak medical techniques on him so that Naruto could train. At first, a business relationship quickly grew into friendship, and now Lee could drop in for a visit just like that. Naruto poured a special healing mixture into a bowl, added some hot water, and helped Lee remove the bandages. Here. She pushed the bowl towards him. Otherwise tomorrow you won't be able to bend your fingers. The guy lowered his hands there with a sigh. Like all ninjas, he did not like treatment. He was afraid of IVs and needles to the point of trembling, running away from the first aid post every time. But Naruto obeyed, following all her medical orders. Maybe because they were friends. Meanwhile, the girl took out half of the pie left over from yesterday and cut it into pieces. She added a glass of milk and placed it in front of the guest. In 20 minutes you will be able to remove your hands. Then you can eat. She sat down opposite. Well, tell me, how is your team doing? Lee beamed and eagerly began sharing the news. And what an amazing teacher he has, and Niji his rival is so strong, but he will definitely defeat him one day. And the power of youth will help him in this. How is Sakura-san? He suddenly asked and blushed to his ears. This was not the first time Naruto noticed her friend's strange behavior towards Sakura and remained silent. You never know what reasons he has. But now, Lee, carefully, as if she were stepping on the unsteady soil of swamps. Do you like Sakura? He blushed even more and nodded, lowering his head. Naruto bit her lip. It wasn't that she didn't like her teammate. No, Sakura was a beautiful, bright girl. But her split personality, constant mood swings and aggressiveness were baffling. I felt sorry for Lee. Friend, you understand, she likes Sasuke. She dreams of marrying him at the moment. She hated herself for causing pain with her words. But she couldn't remain silent any longer, otherwise Lee would get completely bogged down. And here no power of youth will help. I know. The guy nodded. But I thought you were dating him, and Sakura. No, Sasuke and I are just friends. Naruto felt her ears burning. Black eyes came to mind, long hair tied in a low ponytail. She blushed even more. Definitely good friends. Like with you? The time came, and Naruto went to get bandages specially soaked in healing ointment. Why don't you pay attention to some other girl? She asked from the room. And she began to sort through all her classmates in her mind. As luck would have it, their set consisted mainly of clan princesses, whose parents will not allow the clanless Lee, who does not have chakra, to approach them. The exception was Tenten, but she, according to Lee himself, had a crush on Hyuga Niji. No! Rock Lee suddenly clenched his fists. I will get Sakura-san's attention. May the power of youth help me with this. Me too. Naruto sighed, bandaging her friend's paws. Let's think of something, Datebao. Just don't rush, I beg you. I won't. Apparently, the guy didn't even see her. He was all in dreams of the pink-haired Kunoichi. After all, she is so. Naruto sighed heavily. Fumiko's grandmother was right. In matters of love, medicine is powerless. Itachi sat comfortably on a chair near the Hokage's chair, unrolling a green scroll. Issuing new missions to Genin teams, checking reports on those already completed. The daily routine that leads to AD rank mission. Usually Naruto and Sasuke's former homeroom teacher, Yumino Irika, would do this, but today the Chunin had no time. Quarterly reports, performance characteristics for the past year, submission of personal files of former students. When the Uchiha accidentally looked into the teacher's room, only his tail sticking out on end was visible from the pile of papers. Irika-sensei asked to replace him with the Hokage today, and Itachi easily agreed. This was quite consistent with his goals. I wanted to look at my brother's group. When Team 7 entered the room, Itachi realized that things were even worse than he had imagined. Sakura beaming with delight, looking at Sasuke every now and then. Ototo glanced warily at her and tried to stay away, barely maintaining a calm mask. Naruto acted as a buffer between them, chattering cheerfully about something. And somewhere off to the side flashed the mentor, Hatake Kakashi. Perfect team cohesion. The students do not want to see the teacher would not see the students in person. That's why they started calling him Kakashi-san, realizing that he wouldn't teach them anything. We have come for a new mission, old man! Naruto exclaimed. Just let it be something more complicated. Tired of chasing cats, Datebao? Hatake rolled his eyes. Sakura pushed the girl in the side. Uzumaki, Kakashi-sensei himself knows very well what missions we should be given. Really, teacher? She turned to the Jounin. He sighed heavily, but nodded. Naruto. The third entered in the meantime. All missions are distributed properly. Look, I have it at my disposal. His lecture was interrupted in the most unceremonious manner by Tora, who burst through the window. The cat walked imposingly into the center of the room, not paying attention to anyone, approached Uzumaki and began to rub against her legs. Tora, my dear. The girl stroked him. You've been completely tortured. The cat closed his eyes contentedly and rattled throughout the room. Itachi couldn't help but smile. Ototo described in vivid colors how they hunted the harmful cat, and how he defeated them in an unequal battle. But Sakura couldn't resist. Uzumaki! Couldn't you also have called the cat when we were catching him? She squealed. He scratched me. Look, it still hasn't healed. The Tora is not from evil. Naruto stood up for the animal. She squatted down to make it easier to iron and now indignantly looked up at her teammate. Tora defended himself. He ruined my dress. And made him look like a fool, Itachi understood without words. He wounded me too. Sasuke shrugged. But I don't shout. Sakura immediately turned her attention to him. And Itachi did not take his eyes off his former senpai. Teamwork is zero, but the execution of the Hokage's order that Naruto spoke about is perfect. Silence. The third couldn't resist and slammed his palms on the table. Then he sat down on a chair, puffed on his pipe, and sighed heavily. The genins lined up and straightened up. But Sakura cast short, angry glances at Naruto, at whose feet Tora was purring happily. 2 spots of bashful blush burned brightly on the blonde's cheeks. She bit her lips. She clearly didn't like the performance the kunoichi put on in front of strangers. She cast a short, apologetic glance at Itachi, who closed his eyelids for a second in acceptance. Just yesterday, your mentor asked me to give you a mission of a higher level. I agreed. The old man took out a scroll. You will become guards. Great! Sakura beamed. Sasuke chuckled. Naruto lit up too. Who will we protect? Daimyo? Princess? Patience. The third's complacent mood returned, but Itachi watched the sly sparkles in his blue eyes. Uzumaki is not an idiot. She understood that they would not be given high-ranking people right away. Rather, the reason for the joy is in the journey itself. Please enter the visitor. The door slid aside, and a gray-haired man with a pointed beard, wearing simple village clothes and holding a bottle of sake in his hands, appeared on the threshold. He immediately kissed it, swallowing greedily. Sasuke raised an eyebrow in surprise and Naruto winced. She couldn't stand alcohol in any form. They're just children. Meanwhile, the customer was indignant. And for that little one, it's generally better to sit at home and play with the cats. Tora snorted and put out his claws threateningly. Naruto immediately patted him on the ear. Well, Tora, don't be offended. He's not out of malice. It's better if I take you with me on the mission. You'll walk next to him all the time. She smiled. Itachi chuckled as the customer turned pale. The drunken blush faded from his cheeks as soon as he saw Tora's promising, bloodthirsty grin. It seems the cat even licked his lips. My name is Tazuna. The man cleared his throat. I am an architect from the land of waves, building a bridge there. Along the way, you will have to protect me, even at the cost of your own lives. The friends exchanged gloomy glances. When the genin left with the customer, the third turned to his assistant. What is your opinion of the team, Itachi-kun? The Uchiha froze, thinking, once again analyzing in detail the picture he had seen earlier. The team is not united. Everyone pulls the blanket on themselves. The mentor has no real authority. But perhaps this is just my opinion, because this is the first time I've seen my brother's entire team. But have you already met Naruto Uzumaki? Sarutobi bowed his head. Itachi calmly looked at the opposite wall. So this is what all these questions are about. Find out the real state of affairs between the Uchiha clan and the Jinchuriki. Superficial, Hokage-sama, he replied. She was in our neighborhood a couple of times, but mostly she ran after Sasuke. I'm glad they became friends. The old man puffed on his pipe. I don't think that's actually true. Itachi shook his head. At all costs, we need to protect the guys, at least for a couple more months, from the attention of the council, Danzo and the third. From the very beginning, Naruto chose Ototo as her opponent and continues to insist on this game to this day. With such an opponent, she will only improve, the old shinobi noted. If he ever reaches Sasuke's level and forces him to take himself seriously. Itachi chuckled. And in this phrase, in the expression of his face, he tried to put all the pride, all the arrogance of the ancient clan. Judging by his relaxed muscles and rather sparkling eyes, he succeeded. So be it, let Naruto forgive him for those words. It was as if a slippery, vile slug was tossing and turning in my chest. But this had to be said in order to lull the vigilance of the ruling elite. So I'm not sure that they will cope with this mission. He shook his head. Sasuke is certainly ready for the test, but Kunoichi. They may get hurt. Wouldn't it be better to train them on D-rank missions? You're too strict, Itachi-kun. Sarutobi shook his head reproachfully. Sooner or later, chicks must fly out of the nest. Young shinobi must learn from their mistakes. I understand. Itachi bowed his head and began to work on the papers with a calm face. The Uchihas only seemed insensitive outwardly. In fact, they had yet to look for another such hot-tempered clan. And now real rage was bubbling inside. Surely this mission is more difficult than it seems at first glance. Sarutobi clearly expects that along the way the kids will get some very painful bumps on themselves and will never ask to leave Konoha again. Of course, Kakashi will not allow the village's weapons to suffer, but for example, the death of a customer may well undermine Naruto's confidence in his abilities. And if Sasuke, her friend, gets hurt? What is the life of one architect and a shinobi boy compared to almost handheld weapons? Itachi himself felt bad at the thought that his beloved little brother could get hurt. That he would have to heal Sasuke's wounds, see his pain. And he couldn't even break free now to say parting words or help him pack his bag, because Hiruzen, out of the corner of his eye, was carefully tracking his every movement, facial expression and gesture. He was in vain hoping to see something. Years of work in ANBU, the title of clan genius, the title of heir to the head, deadly missions and espionage taught him best to hide, to extinguish his feelings. For the next 2 hours, Itachi turned into an unconscious doll, busy with papers. And when he left the Hokage Palace, the 7th team was no longer in the village. Are you worried, Dobe? Sasuke asked quietly, tugging at the end of the braid that the girl was fiddling with. This is the first time I left the village. Naruto shared her experiences. Before that, they didn't let me out, and when I tried to get out secretly, they intercepted me. In my entire life, I have never seen anything except Konoha. Sasuke paused and looked at her carefully. Everything will be fine. He lightly touched his friend's shoulder. She smiled, grateful for the support. Thank you. They had been walking for about 2 hours, the sun was high above the horizon, and it was hot. But the heat did not kill Uzumaki's interest and enthusiasm at all. She turned her head, looking around. Her eyes sparkled with admiration. It seemed to the girl that even the air here was lighter, not as oppressive as inside the village. Sasuke's sharp elbow, embedded in her ribs, interrupted her admiration of nature. Dobe, when was the last time it rained? He whispered barely audibly. There was definitely no precipitation in the last 24 hours. The girl hissed in response, rubbing the sore spot. Can't you make it easier, sir? She was indignant. And why these questions? Sasuke silently nodded towards a small puddle on the edge of the road. Do you think? They were attacked when the group moved 10 meters away from the puddle. In a split second, Kakashi was wrapped in a steel chain and cut into pieces. Sakura screamed shrilly, looking at the teacher's body parts with wide eyes. 2 blurry shadows and torn cloaks and strange masks rushed towards the genin. Naruto felt hot breath behind her, the smell of unwashed body and steel. Your turn, the attacker hissed. The girl silently walked away and Sasuke took her place. The Uchiha jumped high, twisted, following the steel ribbon that bound the opponents, and nailed it to the tree with a shuriken, securing it with a kunai. The enemy shinobi stretched, jerked and hissed, unable to free themselves. Each had one glove with huge claws, from where the chain stretched. And it was these gloves that Sasuke chose to land on. He easily lowered himself, grabbed them, and with a simultaneous blow sent both of them forward, forcing them to twitch like dogs on a leash. And there she already met one of them, Naruto, with a roundhouse kick. The soul slammed into the bridge of the nose, breaking it with a crunch. Blood sprayed, the shinobi hissed, and the girl delivered a series of blows to the ribs and kneecaps, almost paralyzing. So I updated my shoes. She chuckled, putting together the shadow cloning seals. During this time, the second managed to free himself and rushed to the architect, near whom Sakura froze. But he was met by a crowd of identical blondes with kunai in their hands. And Hatake Kakashi himself. Teacher! Sakura was overjoyed to tears. You are alive! But how? Replacement technique. The jounin nodded to the place where his cut body lay. Instead, there were only stumps of thick branches. Hatake looked sternly at the pale architect. I think we should talk. Team number 7 sailed to the land of waves in a gloomy mood. Nobody likes to be deceived. Perhaps the only one who did not lose heart was Naruto. She lay on the bow of the boat, lowered her hand into the water and watched as tiny fish curled around her fingers, twirled, trailing behind her in a multicolored train. And the thick fog, droplets of moisture settling on her hair, did not prevent her from enjoying the journey. She liked to feel the cold flows sliding over her skin, refreshing it. The girl turned over on her back and put her backpack under her head. Sasuke immediately settled on her thigh as usual and dozed off, saving his strength. Uzumaki listened out of the corner of her ear to the conversation between the mentor and the architect. Shipowner Gato does not want the bridge to be completed. He makes a lot of money from transportation, and if we are connected to the mainland, he will go broke. That's why he sent the killers. The man sobbed and rubbed his eyes under his glasses. I understand if you turn around and leave. But I couldn't do otherwise. My daughter and grandson. I hear him calling me. Dida, Dida, but I can no longer approach. And my daughter will never be able to forgive the Leaf Shinobi for my death. She will curse them and live with hatred in her heart. Sakura clenched her fists. Sasuke chuckled into the thick fabric of his friend's sundress. Naruto bit her lip. Perhaps Kakashi-san most clearly expressed the general point of view on such simple blackmail. But it is necessary to teach the architect a lesson. She jumped up and pressed her hands to her chest. Well, of course, we will help you, she exclaimed. We simply have to help you. I asked you, Naruto gasped, tears welling up in her eyes. She looked at Tazuna with pleading eyes. Please, if something happens to me, tell my grandparents that I really, really love them, more than anything in the world. They have no one but me. She spread her hands. My parents died, only me remained. But my family will be proud if I die like a true shinobi in battle. Her eyes lit up. I will fight and protect you. Don't look that I'm little, I'm already 11 years old. I can stand up for myself, I just graduated from the academy. Sakura looked at this performance with round eyes. The mask made it difficult to read Kakashi's reaction. Sasuke hugged his friend and buried his head in her shoulder. I'll help you, Dobe, he said hoarsely. I want to return to my little sister as a hero and show off to her. After all, I promised to go to the river with her and buy her dango. Apparently, the architect became terribly uncomfortable. Apparently, only now he realized the simple truth. Children, yesterday's schoolchildren, were sitting in front of him. Not scary and powerful shinobi, but ordinary teenagers who had brothers, sisters, families. I can't, he managed. I can't. Immediately the atmosphere changed. Sasuke straightened up and with a predatory movement found himself nose to nose with the man. Never try to deceive a Leaf Shinobi, he said morally, glaring with his impenetrable gaze. We are touchy, vindictive and vindictive. Speak for yourself, team. Naruto smiled sunnily. I can forget, and then take revenge again. The architect was shocked. So I'm an orphan, I don't have grandparents, Uzumaki shrugged. And Sasuke has no sisters, but he has an older brother, a jounin. You deceived me, Tazuna exclaimed, and the boatman immediately hissed at him. But now we're even, Sasuke chuckled. And next time, think before you deceive the ninja. The return prank may not be so harmless. Naruto finished after him. But we will still help you. Kakashi concluded the presentation. Sasuke-kun. Sakura folded her arms over her chest. You were incredible. She moved closer, praising her teammates' acting skills. And Naruto returned to the bow of the boat again and lowered her hand into the water, teasing the small fish. Life is beautiful. Naruto didn't like to hurt, didn't like to fight just to win. She wanted to become a doctor to help people, to be needed and useful. To be able to take the pain of a comrade for yourself. And in battle, what she most valued was her friend's faithful shoulder next to her. Don't be afraid, Sasuke-kun, I can protect you. I will fight to the death for you. For all of you. It doesn't matter if a person loves you or hates you, if they are willing to trust you with their back in a fight, it's worth a lot. This means that you are one step closer to understanding each other. Kakashi-san began to protect them from the Mist Swordsman, Momochi Zabuza, who appeared. He fought with him, using the Sharingan in his eye, which was always covered with a bandage. And yet he fell into the enemy's trap and ended up in the water prison. And now, while the real Zabuza was holding the Jonin in a huge water ball, his clones were attacking the remnants of the team. The bandage clanged as it fell on the grass. A light braid flashed in the air. A powerful blow knocked the air out of her lungs. Naruto prepared to fall, but strong arms caught her and laid her on the grass. Don't worry, Dobe. Sasuke smiled at her from the corners of his lips. I'll take care of the rest. He rushed forward behind a swarm of his shuriken, which Zabuza demolished with one blow of his sword. Sasuke wheezed in his arms and twitched. Naruto felt his pain as if it were her own. A trickle of blood flowed from the bitten lip down his chin. With a single click, the huge fan slid out of the scroll and opened its dark wings. A directed stream of air knocked the prey out of the hands of the shinobi, he hissed, and Sasuke ran up to his friend, who was leaning on a fan. Staggering, the girl approached the dropped bandage. From behind, Sakura was struggling and screaming something, but the girl didn't listen to her. She slowly bent down and picked up her bandage. I told you to run! Kakashi raged in the water prison. I got caught. That's it, we lost. Take an architect and run. Do what you're told, girl. Run. And leave the old man to us, I'll get paid well for him. Momochi grinned. And leave your teacher too, you won't help him in any way. Naruto looked at him calmly, with a slight smile. It doesn't matter if I die now. Even if Kakashi-san hates me. The teacher twitched in the water ball. But I won't leave him in trouble. A true shinobi will never abandon his comrade. And I want to help my friends. The scroll opened, and Saban and Kunai flew at the swordsman, followed by 50 shadow clones, which Zabuza simply destroyed with his sword. The girl turned one of the clones into a weapon and quickly put it in her backpack to get it out before Zabuza's eyes. Sasuke! Naruto threw him a huge collapsible shuriken. The Uchiha threw it at Zabuza, the real one, who was hiding behind his clone. He caught it easily, with one hand, while continuing to hold Kakashi captive with the other. But the first shuriken was followed by a second, which Momochi simply jumped over. With a pop, Naruto emerged and unfurled her fan. Thin streams of air wrapped in a drill rushed towards Zabuza. He was forced to pull his other hand out of the water. You're in deep trouble. She had no idea that Zabuza could move so fast. In the blink of an eye, he was next to her, raising his weapon above his head. With a loud clang, the shuriken caught by the swordsman met the folded fan. The girl screamed from the monstrous power put into the blow. Her hands instantly went numb, and she dropped her weapon. And when the blade rushed towards her again, she closed her eyes. Naruto! Sasuke's desperate cry. There was no blow. Great plan, Naruto. The girl looked up. Kakashi stopped the blade with his hand, blood sprayed into the water like a fountain. Thank you, Kakashi-san. Now run away from here. Naruto nodded, dived for her fan and rushed out of the water into Sasuke's arms that grabbed her. Crazy! The Uchiha exhaled. What if he saw through you? Couldn't they have made another clone? But it worked! Naruto beamed in response. Sasuke covered his eyes with his palm and sighed heavily. Itachi would have killed me if something had happened to you. What does Itachi have to do with it? Naruto didn't understand. Another heavy sigh. The fight between Kakashi and Zabuza was amazing. They foresaw the enemy's movements and were ahead of their thoughts. The giant water dragons sank their fangs into each other's throats as their creators repeated the movements like a perfect mirror. Wow, Datebao! Sharingan can do that too? Naruto looked at Sasuke. I think Kakashi already knows water techniques. The Uchiha shook his head. In the end, Zabuza was simply washed away by a huge wall of water. 3 thin Senbon immediately pierced his neck. The special shinobi hunting the Nukenin bowed politely and took the criminal with him. They had no right to interfere with him, so as not to aggravate relations between the villages. And still it's unfair, Datebao, Naruto muttered. She felt something was wrong with what was happening, something had gone wrong again, but her tired mind could not yet figure out what exactly. Don't worry, Naruto. Kakashi approached her. He held his hand above his head for a moment, thinking, and then, having made up his mind, he patted the fluffy top of his head. Now everything will be fine. Yes. Datebao. The girl sniffed. And the next moment she was forced to catch the unconscious mentor. Naruto snapped out of her memories. They won, with difficulty, but they won. All that remains is to bring their mentor to his senses. The door to the room slid to the side, and Tazuna's daughter, Tsunami, appeared on the threshold with a teapot, over which a parka curled in a spiral. I brought more water, as you asked. The woman put the dishes next to the girl. She looked at the pale man lying motionless. How is he? She asked worriedly. He will live. Naruto smiled. Now I won't let him die until he shows me all his water techniques, Datebao. The woman laughed lightly, nodded and left the room. Naruto began to grind the herbs in a small bowl. As a child, when she watched Fumiko work, it seemed to her that her grandmother was casting a spell. It looked so mysterious. They were accommodated in the architect's house and given 2 rooms. Kakashi was immediately placed in one of them, and the genin settled in the second. Tazuna turned out to be a good old man, lively, cheerful, and sociable. He had a lively daughter and a troubled grandson. The boy looked with a blank, angry look and hated any mention of heroes and shinobi. Naruto herself could have become the same if Grandma Fumiko had not picked her up in time. Inari almost lost faith in people, in their kindness. He became disillusioned with the world. And she didn't even have time to stir him up. Residents, having heard that he had come to them, albeit a beginner, but still a shinobi medic, reached out to her with all their illnesses and ailments. From morning to evening, Naruto examined them, scanned their bodies, and prescribed treatment. She wrote detailed recipes for decoctions and infusions, and explained how to identify the herbs needed for this. She came to bed late at night, fell and immediately fell into a dreamless sleep, only to get up a couple of hours later and go give Kakashi a strengthening infusion. It made it possible to tone the muscles, rid the body of toxins, cleansed it. Without a thorough examination and detailed analysis of the patient's condition, literally in the field, this was the best Naruto could offer. The girl herself cleaned the channels, passed healing chakra through them, slowly returning them to normal. And she carefully looked around her eyes and head. It was not enough to damage something in the Sharingan out of ignorance. Naruto raised her mentor's head and forced her to drink another portion of the infusion. She lifted the mask again and carefully laid him down, covering him with a blanket. I remembered how for the first time I was afraid to even touch a piece of fabric on the teacher's face. But the duty of a physician exceeds personal motives. The mentor turned out to have a courageous face with a sharp, stubborn chin and bitter folds at the corners of firmly compressed lips. Not handsome, like the same Uchihos, but there was something about him, attracting attention. The girl stroked the man's hard, gray hair. Kakashi-sensei, she sighed. Why do you hate me so much? I didn't do anything wrong. The girl smiled bitterly. Deep down, It was a shame, because she didn't even know the reasons for such an attitude towards herself. Okay. She stood up. Get better. And you better hurry up, or I'll send Sakura here. She threatened cheerfully and left the room, closing the door behind her. She found Sasuke behind the house. The friend was sitting on a small log, with his hands folded under his chin in a familiar gesture. Naruto sat down next to her and laid her head on her shoulder. Tired? Crazy. She rolled her eyes. But I like it. She smiled. She closed her eyes, relaxing, feeling the fabric of her friend's t-shirt under her cheek, his hot, strong body. Sasuke pulled off the end of the braid and began to finger the thin strands and twirl them around his finger. They often sat like this after training and didn't see anything special about it. Just the support that friends need so much. True, Itachi was always next to them. And now he was missing. My brother told me that ninjas like the one who took Zabuza are killed on the spot. They don't have to drag the victim somewhere. Sasuke looked straight ahead, squeezing the tip of his braid tighter. Naruto nodded. I started studying acupuncture with my grandmother. The way the Sanban entered Zabuza's neck. Do you think we'll see him again? She turned to her friend. He responded with a gloomy look. Gato won't give up so easily. People began to leave the construction site, and Tazuna alone could not cope. I wanted to ask your teacher, but I'll ask you. The architect himself came out from around the corner and sat down on the ground next to them. Why do you help me, although I deceived you? Because it's right. The girl shrugged. She had no other answer. Because I want to help good people. Am I good? The old man squinted, looking at her through the smoke. I think yes. They sat in silence, watched the village wake up, listened to the birds singing. Gato killed Inari's father. Tazuna released a smoke ring and watched it fly away into the clouds. He was the hero of our village, and Gato could not allow a peasant to oppose him. Since then, my grandson has not believed in the existence of heroes. He doesn't trust anyone at all. The old man sighed heavily. From within came a scalding hot wave of bright chakra, which drove away drowsiness and fatigue. Naruto jumped. It's okay, we still have time. We'll talk to your Inari. She smiled. He will believe in heroes again. In the meantime, we need to figure out what to do with the bridge. What should we do with it? Almost all the builders have left, and there is no one to do the work. The Uzumaki bit her lip, holding back a smile. Folded the seals. The clearing behind the house was filled with blue-eyed blondes. 50 volunteers will be enough for you? The girl chuckled. I slightly increased their endurance at the expense of survivability. Tazuna looked blankly at Sasuke. Clones require more chakra, last less time, but are equal in strength to an adult man. He explained condescendingly. As soon as they disappear, Naruto will create new ones. Yeah. Well, let's get to work. And in the evening, another good news awaited them. Kakashi-san came to his senses. Naruto opened her eyes, and above her head was the ceiling of the room in Tazuna's house. She sat down, throwing off the blanket. Multiple shadow cloning techniques 3 times a day can wear down even the legendary vitality of an Uzumaki. While collecting herbs in the forest, the girl suddenly discovered that her nose was bleeding. And then the memories of the dispelled clones came crashing down. Her brain was drowning, choking, trying to sort the pictures. And although the copies did not do anything special, the volume of information was amazing. Naruto fainted right where she stood. Screams and Inari's crying were heard from below. His mother was being dragged somewhere by Gato's men. Judging by the noise, too, no less. The girl got up and found her things next to the mattress. A thick blue sundress, a mesh t-shirt and shoes. Tsunami must have undressed her. It's unlikely that Sakura would fold her clothes so neatly. The short nap did not give her complete rest. Rather, she felt less exhausted. She caught up with Inari on the way to the bridge and saved him using the replacement technique. She hit the bandits with an air wave, and a pair of shadow clones stunned them from behind. While the girl tied them together like a caterpillar, the boy stomped around nearby. Why are you helping us? He finally squeezed out. Naruto smiled as she continued to wrap rope around the unconscious carcasses. Because I want to become a medic ninja, and a medic's duty is to help those in need. She turned and patted the boy's dark hair. No matter what you said before, today you acted like a real hero. Not afraid, he rushed in pursuit to save his mother. This means that the heroes are still alive. They live inside each of us. She placed her palm against the boy's chest and felt his rapidly beating heart. You just need to find him. You found. Inari began to sob. Father would be proud of you. Naruto finished off. Like you, he defended the people dear to him to the last, did not give up even under the threat of death. For him it would be cowardice. He simply would not be able to look you and Mom in the eyes. One-chan Naruto. He rushed to her and wrapped his thin arms around her. The girl hugged him and began stroking his head. Well, no matter what, don't cry. Everything ended well. Can you handle the rest on your own? Yeah. He nodded, smearing tears and snot across his face. Great. And I'll run to help my people. They left without me, the bastards. She hissed, narrowing her eyes. She will tell Itachi what an irresponsible brother he has. She looked at Inari again. And remember, being a hero is not easy, it is hard work. So get ready. The boy jumped up and beamed. I'll be ready, Naruto One-chan Datebeo. The girl laughed and ran to the bridge. I must say, she made it on time. Sasuke dodged numerous Sanban, trapped among the ice mirrors. So far he had been able to do this, thanks to the reflexes that Itachi had developed in them. The elder Uchiha did not know pity or mercy during training, he drove them to bloody blisters. The icy masked boy could not even dream of the speed with which Sasuke's older brother threw kunai and shuriken at them. The folded fan crashed into Sasuke's opponent's cheekbone with great speed and knocked him out of the mirror. Don't waste your time, Uzumaki. The Uchiha raised his eyebrows and threw his weapon to his friend. I don't see the point, Datebeo. They stood shoulder to shoulder surrounded by a dome of mirrors. And each one reflected the guy in the mask, the same one who dragged Zabuza away. Naruto could smell the light aroma of medicinal herbs, the ones she had been collecting in the clearing when she lost consciousness. But the enemy did not look sick or weakened. You are the guy I met in the forest. It dawned on her. The reflections bowed politely. My name is Haku, Naruto. It's very unpleasant for me that we are meeting under such conditions. His deep voice reflected from the shiny icy surfaces. It seemed like he was everywhere. I don't want to kill you, so you better retreat. Would you have retreated yourself if Zabuza had been in Tazuna's place? Naruto asked sadly and understandingly. The guy shook his head. Then I'm sorry, Naruto. Senbons flew at them from all sides. The girl remembered that they had practiced defense against such an attack together with Itachi, but then the space was not enclosed. In a split second, she pulled Sasuke to her, stood in front of him, and unfurled her fan. She could not use the Tenzin to its full potential. The air currents did not harm the mirrors. But it's easy to use as a banal shield. As always, Sasuke understood her perfectly. He grabbed her around the waist, pressed her tightly to him and began to quickly spin around his axis, turning the girl. She held in front of her an unfolded Tenzin, on which metal needles were knocking. Like raindrops on a roof. And when did you manage to meet him? The friend exhaled heavily. We collected herbs together in the forest. Many people mistake me for a girl. Haku interjected. You are the only one who was not mistaken. A girl with an Adam's apple? Naruto raised an eyebrow, changing the position of the Tenzin again. As a result of Haku's attack, only a few Senbon reached their target. Naruto hissed, pulling the needle out of Sasuke's hand as he covered it, glaring at his opponent. An original defense, Haku appreciated. But your mentor is still powerless against Zabuza-san. Sasuke kept his eyes on Haku, and Naruto turned to see how Kakashi and Sakura were doing. Just at that moment, the swordsman ran towards the copy ninja, aiming for the eye with the Sharingan. Kakashi covered himself by sacrificing his hand. Kakashi-san, I won't treat you anymore. Naruto screamed. Do you have any idea how much chakra I absorbed while you were sleeping? Don't appreciate my efforts at all, Datebale. Mama Naruto, Kakashi smiled. Don't be angry. I appreciate your efforts, but I also value your eye. Show off, Sasuke muttered. Again. The girl unfurled her fan and they began to spin again. Again there was a feeling of unity, like two gears in a clock, ideally suited to each other, and so they worked in duels. She felt her partner's heartbeat on her back and heard his rapid breathing. He turned her in the right direction, his whisper in her ear told her where to turn the fan to cover them. We won't last that long, Sasuke croaked. How does he manage to move so fast? Naruto bit her lip as she looked at Haku's many reflections. But only one of them is real. Why are you doing it? She asked to stall for time. Why are you helping Zabuza? He's a criminal. He saved my life and soul. The guy's voice warmed up. And I want all his dreams to come true. Naruto, meanwhile, took out several fragile balls from her pouch. What is this? Sasuke was surprised. Light paint. Does the memory of the Hokage's painted faces haunt you? The Uchiha scoffed, taking out another needle from his shin. Sort of, Naruto agreed. Watch carefully. No matter what others said about awakening the Sharingan and abilities, absolutely all Uchihas had a brain sharpened for a larger volume of information and its high-speed processing. They saw what others could not catch. Natural abilities, carefully nurtured by the clan's mentors. Several shadow clones rushed towards the mirrors. The paint flowed behind them in multicolored stripes. It was then that they understood the principle of the Haku technique. With great speed he jumped from mirror to mirror, getting lost between his reflections. Again. This time there were just shadow clones. More. Naruto covered Sasuke from the needles, but she herself didn't have time. A burning pain pierced her back. She hissed and began to fall onto her side. Blood splashed out of his mouth, his stomach burned with nine-tailed anger and a little, just a little, excitement and anxiety. Uzumaki! A familiar hiss was heard above her ear, strong arms grabbed her across her body. Have you decided to die here? You will not get it. The dome was surrounded by dense fog, in which alien chakra could be felt. Oh, Zabuza-san has become fog. Your mentor was unlucky. Haku stated calmly, even indifferently. Now he is nowhere and everywhere, he is everywhere. It no longer has a shape that the Sharingan could copy, and can strike from all directions. And again needles. But this time Sasuke had already caught the enemy's movements, and was able to burn him with a fireball. But he left Naruto without cover, which Haku took advantage of. The girl lay there and couldn't even get up. Her body seemed numb. Early fatigue and overconsumption of chakra took its toll. She tried to crawl away from the Senbon flying towards her when Sasuke stood in their way. He knocked the needles away from the most vulnerable and dangerous points, getting several into his body. And at once he looked like a hedgehog. Or a cactus. How are you? He turned, clenching his teeth. And Naruto saw that the previously black eyes had turned red, and one volume was swirling in them. Awakening the Sharingan. She whispered. I know. He growled. My head is pounding, my eyes are burning. The partner is an idiot with suicidal tendencies. Well, why do I need all this? They repelled the attack several more times. You began to keep up with my movements. It's probably all in your eyes, Haku reasoned. They seem to be saturated with blood. But I can be faster. The numbness slowly passed, the girl managed to squirm away and, with the help of the clones, pull out the needles. It immediately became much easier, and she managed to pull Sasuke away. He dodged the second game himself. He spat out a fireball in response, and another, and another. Naruto supported him with wind. They could have circled like this forever, but one needle hit the girl in the ankle, breaking the tendon. Naruto screamed, feeling the burning pain, and crouched down. A shadow covered her. Sasuke, spreading his arms, shielded her with himself. She barely had time to pick him up in her arms, having difficulty finding a place between the stuck senbons. My head is pounding, my eyes are burning, my partner is inclined. He smiled faintly. His eyes brightened. But I couldn't do otherwise. And he lost consciousness. Naruto knew, Naruto understood that she needed to check the pulse, remove the needles, provide first aid, share chakra. But inside, orange, burning rage rose in waves. It clouded my brain and made a noise in my ears. Spiral streams of scarlet color began to rise around, they swirled like a hurricane. Uzumaki was in the very center of it, holding the motionless body of her friend in her arms. With unseeing eyes she looked at his pale face, at the blood coming from the wounds. Her lips became dry, parted, revealing a brutal grin. The scars seemed to cut into her cheeks and became longer. How she looked at herself from the outside. Carefully, afraid to disturb her, she laid her friend on the ground, and she rushed towards Haku. "What is this?" he whispered in horror. Such inhuman malice. The fox was struggling inside, asking him to come to his senses, to wake up, but Naruto, perhaps for the first time in her life, did not listen to him. Before my eyes stood a motionless Sasuke, studded with Senbon. She lost him, lost a friend, a loved one. Failed to protect. She raised her face to the sky and howled, the howl spreading across the ice dome along with a wave of dense chakra. The braid unraveled, and the hair rose, flowing through the air, like living snakes. The ice began to crunch, ring, and cracks ran along it. And Naruto rushed at Haku. Quickly, dodging all the blows, as if in front of her, Itachi, sweeping away the needles, grabbed the enemy by the hand, burned her with poisonous chakra and hit with all her might, breaking the mask. Along with it, ice fell to the ground in shards. She continued to beat him, watching with pleasure how the bruises decorated his face and hands, how a scarlet thread flowed from his mouth. "Kill me!" Haku wheezed. Like a bucket of ice water. Naruto stopped and froze, sitting astride the guy. Her hair fell in golden strands, obscuring her face. She almost killed her opponent like a beast, almost beat him to death. She was mad with bloodlust. The girl jumped back, rushed to her friend, and instantly felt her pulse. Sharp, quiet, but quite stable. The rage passed as if it had never happened. Naruto began to slowly pull out the needles, looking sideways at Kakashi and his opponent. "Kill me?" the lying Haku asked again. "What more? I won't even think about it." Uzumaki snorted, healing her wounds. "You are a strong warrior, you can still fight." "I can't handle you." Haku looked at the gray sky above his head. "Remember, when we first met, you said that you would die for your friends. You will do anything to protect them. I also want to die for Zabuza-san. In our country, people who have improved genomes are hated. My own father killed my mother and tried to kill me when he found out that I mastered ice techniques. He couldn't come to terms with this. And if it weren't for Zabuza-san, I would have died of hunger and cold. He gave me a roof over my head, gave me a home and a meaning to life. Fulfilling his dreams is what I live for. I am his best tool. And I failed him. Couldn't kill you. What stupidity!" The girl bowed her head, her hair got into her eyes again, and she angrily removed it. "Whether you are a weapon or the owner of an improved genome does not matter. You are a person and cannot be a thing." She pulled out another needle. A greenish glow penetrated the wound. "How do you have to love a person in order to dissolve in him to such an extent?" "Strongly, Naruto, very strong." Haku smiled. "I hope one day you will understand me. Sorry, give me a little more time, I can't die yet." He made the seals with one hand and disappeared. The ninja dogs called by Kakashi detained the swordsman. The largest, a black bulldog, bit into his shoulder, forcing him to stand in one place. And lightning danced in the Jonin's hands, discharges struck in different directions, and a sound resembling the cries of many birds was heard in the air. Hatake rushed towards the swordsman, but Haku suddenly jumped out in his way. The hand with lightning pierced the guy's chest, coming out the other side. The bird's cries died down. Naruto screamed and clapped her hand to her mouth. Even though Haku was her enemy, she sympathized with him. "Because I knew the pain that loneliness causes." When in a thunderstorm you huddle in the farthest corner of the room. When you try with all your might to achieve at least one smile, affectionate look or gesture. And a person is ready to accept any outstretched hand, just to no longer be alone. She wanted to help Haku, become his friend. Show that he has more than just Zabuza. And at the same time I understood that all this was useless. The guy chose his fate, he himself determined the meaning of his existence. And nothing will turn him off this path. She suddenly remembered how she closed Grandma Fumiko's eyes. Her first death. Sasuke groaned weakly on his knees, instantly bringing her to her senses. She went back to tending to her friend's wounds, casting brief glances at the swordsman and the jonin. Itachi jumped away from his opponent's sword, carefully lowered Haku, and closed his eyes. Kakashi-san, Naruto, take care of Sasuke's wounds. I have to deal with Momochi myself. It was the first time Naruto had seen him so serious and collected. Standing in front of her was an Anbu, a weapon in a human body. And it longed to avenge the boy, so selflessly devoted to the swordsman. Killed because of him. I obey, Uzumaki whispered quietly, returning to her work. Tazuna and Sakura ran up to them. How is he? The girl leaned her head against the Uchiha's chest. Sasuke-kun, she called. Sasuke-kun! Sasuke-kun! She screamed piercingly, tears flowing from her eyes. Naruto winced. Don't cry, Datebeo. You're just a distraction. He will outlive you and me. Haruno looked up. So he's alive, alive? Really alive? True, now don't bother me. Momochi, being hidden by the fog, beat Kakashi considerably, but he did not remain in debt. Now it was the swordsman's turn to lose. The first thing the copy man did was to leave him without arms, hitting his elbows with kunai, thus depriving him of the ability to hold a sword. Battered, covered in blood and dirt, beaten, they stood and grinned at each other. It is unknown how events would have developed if the shipowner Gato himself had not appeared on the bridge with a company of armed men. Well, come on, you're still alive, he grinned. How insulting. Sorry, Zabuza, but you have to die. What? The swordsman did not understand. Do you really think that I would waste highly qualified personnel on a lousy village? He pointed at his henchmen. It's better to hire hidden village renegades. Moreover, their corpses pay so well. The attendants burst out laughing. Gato turned his attention to Haku's corpse. Oh, this is the guy who broke my arm. I promise to remember this to him. He lowered the heavy cane. Naruto closed her eyes. The crunch of broken bones was in my ears. Sorry, Kakashi, I no longer have a reason to kill Tazuna. And fight with you. Zabuza stood with his shoulders slightly hunched. Nothing remained of that shinobi, bursting with strength and rage, who rushed into battle with a roar. It was as if he died at once. The swordsman did not take his eyes off the body of his partner, sliding along the folds of clothing, along the bloody hole in the sternum. By the shadow of a smile on the lips. And I no longer have chakra. The jounin squatted down. Naruto put Sasuke down, stood up, and took the fan. The weapon seemed unusually heavy and weighed down on tired hands. Keep an eye on him, she said to Sakura, nodding at her friend. And she headed forward, to her mentor and Zabuza. The swordsman didn't even turn at the sound of her steps. I heard your conversation with Haku, girl. Under the bandages hiding half of the face, bitter folds lay at the lips. And although I have always insisted that shinobi are just a tool for war, today I admit that you are right. I was never able to see Haku as just a thing. Will you lend me your kunai? Naruto came and stood next to him, offering a weapon in her open palm. Zabuza leaned down and took it with his teeth, barely scratching the skin. I'll help. The girl straightened her fan. Hatred is the most destructive of all feelings. This is what her grandmother Fumiko taught her. And that's why Naruto didn't hate Gato, who was standing nearby. No, she despised him. Because of money, because of the illusion of power, he ruined the lives of excellent shinobi, he sent people to certain death, forced them to do mean things, abominations. And he himself hid behind them like a rat. The swordsman nodded. They rushed forward at the same time. Suicide attack. The swordsman of the mist, deprived of arms, and the half-educated Leaf, left with almost no strength. They made their way through the crowd. Naruto cleared the way for Zabuza to get to Gato, dodging spears and short swords along the way. She used the folded fan as a club, delivering blows right and left, breaking bones with a crunch, looking indifferently into eyes mad with fear. It was as if someone had temporarily erased all her emotions and feelings. Then she will mourn Haku and his difficult fate, but now she simply does not have the right to do so. Zabuza turned into a demon, thirsty for blood. He shredded, cut people, rushed forward towards his goal, jumping over living obstacles, walking, literally, over their heads. But when the kunai was already stuck in Gato's chest, he himself was hit by several spears. Naruto immediately threw away the owners of the weapon, but it was too late. The swordsman growled and struck several more times with his blade, pushing the shipowner's body off the bridge. With a quick jerk he turned towards the girl, causing the others to recoil. His gaze gradually dimmed due to the loss of blood and chakra. The last one was especially scary. It is chakra that allows a ninja to survive in battle and make it to the hospital even with the most terrible wounds. Zabuza could no longer be helped. "Help me get to it." He lay down next to Haku and touched his cheek tenderly. "I wish I was where you are." At that moment, light, fluffy snow fell from the sky, the first of this year. It fell in large flakes to the ground, covering it with a white sheet. Naruto continued to sit near her defeated opponents, not noticing the tears rolling down her cheeks. She did not see how the peasants came with pitchforks and hoes and drove away the remnants of Gato's bandits. I didn't see how the awakened Sasuke approached her in the company of Sakura. She just sat and watched. And she cried. Thus ended their first serious mission. That's how it all happened. Sasuke finished his story. And they named the bridge after Naruto. Dobe not only cured many people in that village, but also helped the architect's grandson to believe in himself again. They sat in the bright kitchen of the Uchiha house. In addition to Sasuke's family, Kagami and Shursui also stopped by and added their comments throughout the story. "I'm proud of you, you both did great." Mikoto stroked her son's head. "As expected from my son," Fugaku answered proudly. Sasuke lit up all over. And Itachi thought that at this rate he would turn gray before his time. The adventures of this couple made me shiver. What if Naruto hadn't been a medic, if she hadn't been able to pump Sasuke out? The younger brother could easily have died because of the deception of that old man, Tazuna. The swordsman of the mist alone is worth it. And also the carrier of the improved ice genome, and the company of Gato. But everything ended well, as Naruto herself would have noticed. They coped, scored big, as the third expected, but did not give up, contrary to the expectations of the same third. And soon they will again require missions outside the village. By the way, about Naruto. It's strange, but the girl gave the right to become a storyteller to a friend, withdrawing herself. She sat on the veranda, her bare feet dangling in the air. It was so unlike a living, spontaneous Uzumaki that Itachi became worried. What really happened to her on that mission? What did she talk to Haku about in the forest? And what did Zabuza say during the battle? The brother kept silent about many things, did not want to talk, deftly avoiding dangerous moments. This made Itachi begin to worry more. While everyone was distracted by Kagami's sarcastic remark, Itachi slipped out, closing the door behind him. Naruto leaned on her hands, raising her face to the full moon. The cool night breeze played with the flowing golden strands, and the moonlight made the shadows under the eyes deeper and the cheekbones sharper. Itachi sat down next to him. "What's bothering you?" he asked the question softly. The guy himself didn't understand how he found out about her excitement. "I felt the tension of the stretched string." The girl sighed heavily and licked her dry lips. "I don't know. I guess I finally gave up my illusions. I knew that shinobi are essentially the same killers, but before this mission." Itachi understood it perfectly. I remembered my impressions from the first serious task. Back then he was even younger than Naruto herself. The genius of the clan, indeed. That day, he was thrown inside out in the roadside bushes after their team cut out 2 temporary settlements of enemy ninjas. The life of a shinobi is dirt, blood, war, betrayal, and behind-the-scenes games. If you're lucky, you'll never fly high enough to plot against your own people. But the life of a shinobi also means friends who will never leave you or leave you in trouble. He pulled the girl towards him by the shoulders and forced her to bury her face in the shirt on his chest. Naruto sighed shakily, hugged her waist, and grabbed her so tightly that she couldn't be pulled off with pincers. Itachi felt his thin shoulders trembling under his hand. "And I'm also afraid," she said dully, "that one day you or Sasuke might be seriously injured. And I won't hold back again, I'll go crazy. I will release the demon." "Then you need to improve your self-control," Itachi said instructively. Naruto snorted and raised her face, looking at her friend skeptically. "I am Uzumaki, Itachi. Due to our physiology, we are all a little crazy." Itachi pressed the nose button. "Then you need to remember that we are all your friends and will never turn our backs on you. No matter what happens. And at the same time we remain strong shinobi. There's no need to worry about us so much. Once you become the chief physician of Konoha, then you will definitely be aware of all our wounds. And I will brutally treat you." Naruto giggled happily, rubbing her palms together. Itachi smiled and hugged her tighter, sharing warmth with her frozen body. "You're not a monster, Naruto. Believe me." And in response there was a quiet voice that warmed him from head to toe. "I believe."